So just clarify that. You say there is nothing nobody can do. You can't renege on a treaty. There's nothing they can do to kick us off Cyprus. It is our territory, no questions about it.
Yeah, it's legally settled. It's been settled since 1960, since the formation of the country. They can't go to the ICJ. They can't go through the same mechanism, say Mauritius has tried with Chagos Islands, because there's nothing unsettled about it. It has been settled for so long. There's no mechanism to force the UK to cede sovereignty. They could go to the UK and you know, trying to negotiate an agreement, but you know, it's our territory at the end of the day. It's like trying to negotiate a piece of Wales away. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. I've just done some very quick research. Data from recent years shows that the RAF bases and the military there contribute around 1% of Cyprus's GDP, which is around 350 million euros a year by having those bases. So local employment, spending by squaddies and troops and airmen in shops, contracts and services to buy food, fuel, construction, maintenance and so on. So, I mean, I know there's elections this weekend in Cyprus, but it does seem a very silly thing to suggest, actually, that you'd give away all that money and indeed the security of your island for, what, colonial consequences, as that guy was banging on about, the president.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing really colonial about it because we're not forcing anything on them. We're not trying to govern them. We're not trying to be exploitative towards this. This is entirely a cooperative relationship between two states. And then, if you got some time, go to Cyprus, check it out for yourself. You'll see villages within the zones. They're employed by the bases nearby. There's huge gains that the local population has from this. Like I said, the infrastructure, emergency services, even outside the bases, you have British police patrolling the roads. You have shops that are set up, post offices. It's all set up. People benefit from this massively in Cyprus.
Yeah, crazy talk, but I guess, as we've discussed, this is what happens when you have a government and a prime minister in charge who says to the rest of the world, hey guys, we have some sort of white guilt or colonial shame. Our territory's up for grabs if you try hard enough. Rob, thank you very much. Appreciate it as always. Take care of yourself. Right, still ahead on The Late Show Live tonight. 3 teenage rapists have been spared jail with the government launching an urgent review into the case. Attorney General Lord Hermer being useful for once and proceeding with that. But how would they have been dealt with here in America? That's the big question. Elsewhere, though, tonight.
This government is committed to halving knife crime within a decade, and progress has been made.
I can't quite believe this. US-style school security measures have arrived in Britain for the very first time. We're talking sort of airport-style scanners across a range of schools from one academy in the West Midlands. A former top cop will reveal exactly what's going wrong in just a sec. Don't go anywhere.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GBNews, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis, in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again
to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
One of the most powerful deterrents we have to violent crime is the death penalty.
A really extraordinary story to bring you a bit later on. A convicted triple killer in Tennessee was just hours away from execution yesterday before officials were forced to stop the lethal injection. I'll tell you why shortly. And the governor has said, well, he's been given some more time on God's green earth. And it's an amazing story. I'll bring that to you very shortly. But first tonight, American-style knife archers have arrived in British schools, as in sort of gates, electronic scanners and gates which search for weapons. Kids in the West Midlands are now walking through metal detectors every morning just to get to class. The Trust says it's never actually had a knife incident in any of its schools across Dudley in the West Midlands, but Britain has now become so worried about knife crime that it's now preparing for attacks before they actually happen. Over 1,000 children were convicted of knife possession in England and Wales in just 1 year, and hundreds more ended up in hospital after attacks involving blades. This is pretty dystopian, I think, panel. Welcome back, Connor, Azim. For the UK, it feels like we're just following in the footsteps of America. Yes, no guns, but we do have a knife problem, Connor.
Yeah, massively. And like you say, the scanners in schools, kids seemingly getting their hands on them extremely easily, or as easy as they can with guns over here. It's quite dystopian, isn't it? I mean, it seems like day to day we're getting these horrible stories where kids are getting into fights in school on the playground, and instead of kind of throwing fisticuffs, they're throwing knives, aren't they? You get these horrible stories of kids being killed in the playground. I think it's obviously, I mean, it's bad, not quite as bad, I think, as the perhaps gun epidemic here is with school shootings, but it's going that way.
Yeah, so this is the, it's a trust in Dudley, in Birmingham, near Birmingham. Azim, you've been in America for how long? You're from Scotland originally?
Yeah, I've been here for over 20 years now.
Do you have children here that go to school?
I do indeed, yes.
So they have this in America at some schools?
Yeah, some schools they do, clearly. You know, there's a lot of things I think the UK could learn from the United States, a lot of things that we should definitely import, but this is certainly one of them. This is something that I think everybody appreciates that we should not see in UK school, but the situation has become so bad with knife crime that you know, these things may be necessary now. But I think much more important would be actually, rather than having them in schools, is actually extending the powers of the police for stop and search, which is much more effective, rather than trying to be politically correct all the time, but giving the police much more extensive powers where they think this epidemic is actually happening.
Yeah, it's pretty frightening stuff. And the Trust says they have had no incidents of knife possession or attacks at any of their schools, but it's a sort of pre-action measure. Charlie Rowley, the Trust says that pupils are going into class in the morning, trotting along to their English lessons, and they're having to place mobile phones, keys and other items in trays, as you would going through sort of TSA at the airport, the security, before picking them back up and getting scanned for weapons. I mean, is this really what we come to?
I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. Schools are there to be places of joy as well for kids, to be creative, to be challenged, to be free, to be themselves, to be, as I say, as creative as they possibly can be, and to learn in a happy environment. It's not to be turning up at the school gates, going through masses of security to feel as if you're already a con before you walk in through to lesson 1 maths with Mrs. Taylor or whoever it is. It's ridiculous. My question really is, where are the parents? kids. You know, I don't know what kind of school it is, whether it's I mean, because we'll see this at primary schools if it's not already happening, but if it's primary or even secondary, you know, there is still a responsibility, I think, particularly if it's older primary school kids, for example, and even younger secondary school kids. If you're going to school, if you are caught with a knife, you are out. And your parents, I'm afraid, will have to deal with that. The social services will have to deal with that, and the local authorities will have to deal with that. You will not be back at that school. A zero-tolerance approach will be the only way, I think, to clamp down on this nonsense before we start apologising for it and just saying, well, you know, that's just the way it is. It could be in a borough of London or any other city, for that matter. We just have to accept it, and to mitigate it, we put up these scanners. That's not the answer. That can't be.
No, I agree. I think it does ultimately come down to the parents. The school did consult parents in what they described was the largest consultation it had ever conducted, and there was overwhelming support. The trust spent £50,000 installing these scanners, Benjamin, and they said the most commonly confiscated items so far across 5 or 6 of their schools have been aerosols and fizzy drinks rather than weapons. I don't know why aerosols. What, deodorant? Are they being confiscated?
Well, I have to say that these scanners in schools are actually not new. It was more than a decade ago. I used to volunteer for a charity called London Citizens and go into schools to encourage people to pursue careers in university. And I remember being in Mudchute in East London, which is every bit as appealing as the name suggests, and being shocked to go into a school there where they had these scanners for knives, because, you know, London has had a serious knife problem for some time. So this is something that parts of the country have been living with for a while. I have to say, if I were a parent at one of these schools and you'd had knife incidents in the community, I would absolutely support it, because you would much rather this situation than, you know, your little boy or girl having a horrific attack. But I think the real question is, how do you get to a point where a child picks up a knife and carries it with them? What is happening in that area? Is it gang violence? Is it a drug problem? Is it something happening at home? And those are the questions that would actually solve the problem. By the point you're having to scan a kid to go into school, you've kind of lost the battle.
Yeah, well, boys, tell me if you had this when you were younger. I never had this or saw this when I was younger. So what has changed, Charlie Rowley, in Britain, where we need this today? What's happened over the course of 25 odd years?
I think there's been clearly a societal breakdown between the social contract of the responsibility of parents and the state, what parents expect from schools, what schools can expect from parents, what pupils can expect from schools, and what schools can expect from the pupils, and what society can expect from police, the local authorities. We live in I think, too much more of a culture now where it's sort of, you know, so what aboutery? You know, a kid can carry a knife into school, and therefore that causes mass panic to an extent where parents, of course, if you hear about it in your local community, of course I would probably be one of those parents if a consultation came my way to say, yep, put them up. I'd hate myself for it, because I just think that's a need. But that is not going to tackle the problem. You've got to target the communities, target the parents, target, for whatever reason, the kids that have fallen out of society for social exclusion reasons, whatever it is, they need to be targeted, they need to be dealt with to allow everybody else to flourish.
Yeah, just expel kids that are troublemakers. There's such a reluctance to do that now. Just keep the kids out of class. Let's get the thoughts of Kevin Hurley, former Met Police officer. Kevin, good morning. Welcome to the Late Show Live. One of our viewers has commented on this story. She says, Caroline, for the kids, it must be like going to prison. It's just awful. I worked in a school for 10 years. They were always full of laughter and joy. Is that what it looks like now, Kevin? Prison-style schools?
Well, I've been in this business of trying to save the lives of kids who want to stab each other at school and elsewhere for 40 years. And indeed, I led the Metropolitan Police anti-knife crime operation called Blunt 2 in 2008, where we cut youth murders by 70% over a couple of years. So I know a bit about the tactics that you need to use. And as one of your guests said earlier, this isn't new. This has been going on for more than 20 years. I can remember being sat in at the planning meetings where local authorities in London were saying, particularly the inner London Borough, saying, yeah, we'll do this. Let's get down to the reality of it. There are no such things as nuclear families as we once knew. There's a really substantial number of non-normal family, normal's the wrong word, number of families where there is an absence of fathers, particularly in the inner city. So the idea of young males being disciplined by dad is never going to work. There's no family to actually reach out to if the daughter has a child when they're 14, 15 or 16 and a second one by a different father by 17 or 18. So the reality is children should be able to go to school without fear of being stabbed in the playground or the dinner queue, and teachers should be able to teach. If this measure is deemed necessary by a school, I think it's quite prudent and reasonable. It's unfortunate we are where we are, but that's the situation. As for the earlier comment of one of your colleagues, the chap with the Scottish accent, I smiled when he said police need more powers to stop and search. The fact of the matter is they've got totally adequate powers to do that. Indeed, that was the main tactic we used when we ran Operation Blunt 2 and we effectively over 4 years saved 100 people from dying and 200 or 300 kids from getting life imprisonment. However, things have changed in the police now. Police are so demotivated, so demoralised, and so scared, frankly, of being called racist, that a large number of them will not stop and search. Stop and search levels in London, for example, are lower than they've ever been before over many, many years. And it's because police officers say, I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to risk my mortgage. Fine, it's unfortunate. I am not going to stop and search people. And so until we change the paradigm where police feel supported in doing stop and search, and in particular on boys of Afro-Caribbean heritage who are 30 times more likely to be murdered than a white youth in London, then I'm afraid this will continue. An interesting little point, I will share this with you. The other day I flew into the UK from somewhere abroad, and I was in the baggage queue and I got chatting with a black woman who was just smiling with me, saying about how she'd had a great time in Gambia. And as we chatted, it turned out she was from North London. And she shared with me, as you end up this conversation, how a 15-year-old son had been stabbed to death 10 years ago in Islington, a black kid. And she was really, really vehemently angry against all the activists and grifters who say that police stop and search too many black youths. She said it's quite clear, it's black kids killing each other, it's black kids killing my son. I wish the police would do more stop and search of black kids, and I wish people would stop scaring them. That's the reality.
Yeah.
In fact, the only reason why we haven't got more teenage kids dying in London than we did perhaps 10, 15, 20 years ago is because NHS doctors and nurses in the Army Reserve working at Camp Bastion in Afghanistan learned life-saving protocols of dealing with traumatic blood loss using such things as Celox bandages to save lives.
Yeah.
That technology is now on emergency ambulances. If we didn't have that, you'd have many, many more deaths.
Yeah. Yeah, life-saving treatment and technology from the fields of the bloodied fields of Afghanistan now in central London. I mean, it says it all, doesn't it? Kevin, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you for your contributions. Hopefully we'll catch up soon. Kevin Hurley, former Met police officer. And I just have to say, viewers and listeners, this is down to political will. If you get caught with a knife, Adam Brooks talks about this all the time. If you're caught with a knife, zero tolerance, minimum mandatory sentence. I don't know, 1 year, 2 year. No excuse. If politicians and governments got serious about that, you don't need to be an expert. You don't need to be some sort of you don't need to be a weatherman to see it when it's raining outside. If you get caught with a knife, zero tolerance, minimum mandatory sentence, banged up. No excuse. And you'll see a lot less deaths, a lot less murders, and a lot less people carrying knives. Right, gbnews.com/your say. Let me know your thoughts on that. Still ahead, though, on The Late Show Live tonight. Great story, this. The Pentagon has released hundreds more UFO files, and it has to be seen to be believed, I promise you. One of the most controversial experts on this will join me very shortly. But before that, 3 teenage rapists have been spared jail, sparking national outrage and forcing the government into an urgent review tonight. But if this crime had happened in America, and it's a horrific, disgusting, disturbing crime, would those boys already be sitting behind bars? This is The Late Show Live. Back in a sec. Don't go anywhere.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you. Bulletins on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Our country is going to be a rocket ship economically.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, is in crisis after her most recent tax raid backfired and ended up costing the Treasury a hell of a lot more money. Who'd have thought, eh? One of America's fiercest commentators will join me to give an assessment on Rachel Reeves in just a tick. However, first of all, the Attorney General, Lord Hermer, has launched an urgent review after 3 teenage boys who were convicted of raping 2 girls while filming the attacks and laughing during the assaults avoided prison entirely. They were allowed to walk free. The boys were aged 13 and 14 at the time of the offences, which the court heard involved repeated rape, threats with a knife, filming on phones and sharing footage online. It is one of the most disgusting cases I've ever had the misfortune of reading. 2 were given 3-year youth rehabilitation orders, while the youngest received just 18 months probation supervision. The judge said he wanted to avoid criminalising the boys unnecessarily. Unbelievable. But here, in huge parts of America, prosecutors would not be talking about avoiding criminalisation or the fact that these boys were apparently low IQ and maybe didn't know what they were doing, which is what the judge said in this ridiculous case. In states like Florida and Texas, prosecutors have repeatedly pushed to move violent juvenile offenders into adult courts, especially in cases involving gang-style attacks, repeat offending or sexual violence. Why? Because those more Republican states, the red states, they argue that once you cross a certain line, such as violent rape and filming assaults, society has a duty to prioritise victims first, not the futures of the offenders. Let's get the take of Azim, Connor, Charlie and Benjamin. Azim, this is a UK case, which has really shocked me to the core, the way the judge responded. He said these lads had an IQ of around, I don't know, it was a low IQ, he called them, and he said they didn't really understand the consequences of what they were doing, and they were just allowed to walk free from court.
Yeah. Well, Ben, this is another example of, I think, the legal profession, judges, senior judges, being completely out of touch with the public sentiment. And this is not the first case of its kind. And we have to remember that this case, the individuals who perpetuated this crime, they've actually done it before. This is not the first time. And the only message that sends to them is that they can actually continue to do, you know, criminal behaviour and engage in criminal behaviour like this, and they'll simply get away with it. Now, the reality is in the United States it will be a very different outcome, because the local district attorney, attorney general who's elected is responsible for these kinds of outcomes, and they would be under immense pressure to ensure that criminals like this are put away. In the UK system, we simply don't have that, and this is just another example of judges out of touch.
But Conor, I would argue maybe in blue states run by Democrat DAs, we've seen many cases where criminals have been allowed to walk free, not just youth offenders, but serious cases where they've been allowed to walk free.
Yeah, massively. And it's always at the discretion of judges, and especially in one of these UK cases, which is, as Azim says, is becoming more and more common, whereby the law is being applied at discretion and often at a wide-ranging kind of sense of opinion. And you can see that in this case, and as you mentioned, in particular leftist cities and Democrat cities, you're seeing people walk free. I mean, it seems like almost daily we're getting reports of child murderers or rapists being able to either walk the streets or being allowed to stay in America for long periods of time before they're rounded up and deported.
Benjamin, Lord Hermer, Sir Keir Starmer's Bezzy mate, is making himself useful for once. He's ordered an urgent review into this sentence.
Yeah, and he's absolutely right. You know, Jess Phillips, the former Minister Labour MP, has also condemned this judgment. I mean, it's shocking what he says. He says, I don't want to criminalise them unnecessarily. Well, behaviour that is this extreme and this jubilant by filming it and laughing it is exactly necessary to criminalise it, because as people point out, you know, the victim cannot escape the trauma that she's developed. And if you don't make it clear just how abhorrent this behaviour is, first of all, these boys could go on and do it again, and secondly, other boys are going to think that they will get away with it too. And it also matters that they filmed it, because we live in an age where you incentivise and monetise some really diabolical behaviour by putting it on the internet, which may well have been one of their motivations. And so it is an extra danger that they were filming it, because you could blackmail these girls with that and you could make money off it from the grim corners of the internet. So it absolutely should be criminalised, and they absolutely shouldn't be free in any way.
Charlie, we need to have some sort of urgent investigation into judges, I argue. Activist judges, we see a lot with the ECHR and so on, and just crazy cases in the UK where, because prisons are full, you get paedophiles allowed to walk free from court. These lads, as Azim mentioned, these lads had already raped a 15-year-old in an underpass in the same Hampshire town in November 2024, not long before this attack. So they'd had previous. So on what planet is this idiot judge, and he is an idiot, saying that he doesn't want to unnecessarily criminalise these lads? They'd already done what they did to that poor girl previously to another girl.
You're absolutely right. Look, you know, I remember it was a different topic, but there was a headline, a front page news, I think it was the Daily Mail, that once called a few judges enemies of the people. I've got a feeling it might have been in relation to Brexit. And at the time, you know, people fell over themselves, saying you can't criticise judges, you can't put their face on front page national newspapers, you can't target them in the way in which the newspaper did. I think back then I was one of those people, because I thought, no, they are some of the most senior, respected, educated, brilliant people in our country that keep us all as an equal. We're all equal under the eyes of the law, and they are the presiding officers in that respect over us. But this has completely blown that out of the water, as has all the other stories that we hear about week after week of judges granting people leave to remain in this country because they don't like the taste of chicken nuggets back home. These judges are on the wrong side of the argument. They are not on the side of the real victims here, which is clearly these two innocent girls that have now got to live with that horrific crime for the rest of their lives. Where is the justice for them? I don't care about these two teenage boys who this judge feels sorry for, because they might have had a low IQ, they might have had a bad upbringing, they got wrapped up in social... Whatever the justification that he's trying to apply to these two individuals, it sends, as has already been said, the complete wrong message that it's okay to carry out that kind of crime, because you know what? You'll get a judge that just lets you off. It is totally backward looking. Of course it should be reviewed, and these boys, I'm afraid, however young, however unintelligent, it was premeditated. They ganged up with each other to commit the crimes that they did. They should be locked up behind bars.
Sickening. Can you imagine being those girls' fathers or parents? And then not only dealing with that attack on your sweet baby, but then seeing what happened in the so-called justice system with that judge. I would be, I mean, livid is an understatement. It's disgusting. It's vile. Let's get the thoughts of Tom Persglove, former Justice Minister. Tom, I guess I speak for the nation on this point, where I'm just completely enraged and disgusted and disappointed and disillusioned with the justice system. You're a former Justice Minister. What went wrong, Tom?
Well, look, I mean, this is impossible to comprehend. I mean, the suffering that the victims are going through, young girls who've been through absolute hell, and the impact on them and the impact on their families. And we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that this is the most serious criminality imaginable, a violent gang rape with a bladed weapon involved, filming it clearly for the purposes of sharing that content for some sort of gratification. And really, those individuals feeling absolutely no consequences whatsoever, having also committed those crimes in relation to several victims. So this is repeat offending of the most serious kind. And I think people will understandably be asking the most probing questions tonight, who are watching your programme, but also across the country, when it comes to public safety, for obvious reasons, dangerous individuals like that walking the streets still. But also, these are lifelong impacts. I mean, when I was the Victims Minister in government, I had the real privilege of spending a lot of time with victims of crime and trying to take steps to improve them being able to come forward and give evidence to try and drive prosecution numbers up, introducing special measures and the like to help those processes. I think those victims tonight will be looking at this in complete despair, because it does absolutely nothing to encourage victims of crime to come forward, because they conclude that they come forward, their experiences aren't taken seriously, they're re-traumatised in the whole process of giving evidence, often over a very long and drawn-out period, given all of the delays and backlogs that we know exist in the system. And then you reach the end of that process, and what was the point? So I think it brings into real sharp focus, actually, a range of questions about trust and confidence in the whole of the justice system that really demand answers. And it's right that this must be referred to the Court of Appeal for a fresh look at it.
Yeah, Tom, thank you so much. It's worth pointing out as well that rape is infamously, people don't get convicted for rape anymore. It's one of the worst, most heinous crimes, and yet conviction rates are literally in the gutter in the UK. So the fact that it even got to court and these children were found guilty and they were just allowed to walk free is just insane. It's just vile. It's just incomprehensible. Tom, thank you very much. Tom Persglove, former Justice Minister. And I will say as well that by default these kids aren't allowed to be named because of their children, their orders. They should be named. The children who commit these types of serious crimes should be named, because the public needs to be aware of who they are. Right, still ahead on the Late Show Live tonight.
On Taiwan, he does not want to see a fight for independence, because that would be a very strong country.
President Trump has halted a major weapons deal with Taiwan as China increases its military presence in the area. Comes off the back of President Trump's visit, of course, to Beijing last week. But are we about to see another war launched? Also on the show tonight.
I'm grounded in the job that I'm doing, which is to make sure we are closer to the EU.
He's looking happier, isn't he, the Prime Minister? Ministers are once again pushing for closer ties with the European Union over trade, but it seems this time it's Europe who have shut the door on our Prime Minister. Does he have any allies left? Maybe Benjamin Butterworth. Back in a tick on the Late Show Live.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it? We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters. Real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The execution of a Tennessee death row inmate has been halted. It's been stopped. Why? I'll reveal all shortly, and you won't want to miss it. But first, let's delve into some of the main stories on the front pages tomorrow, starting with, let's look at The Guardian, shall we, which is reporting that the European Union has rejected UK proposals for a single market for goods. That's after ministers met with the bloc to seek a way to reintegrate British trade with European countries. Let's get the thoughts of Benjamin Butterworth and Charlie Rowley. Charlie Rowley, Keir Starmer, I guess, was pushing for this and wanted it, and the EU have said no. And yeah, he has no allies at all, anywhere.
Well, never mind. We'll move on because, you know, I'm bored of listening to the EU sort of try and bat us away or talk down to us, or anyone that says that Brexit was a bad idea, it's all because of us Brits, it was all our fault. The way we've been treated since Brexit, a democratic vote, has been appalling. And now the Prime Minister has got to make up his mind what his strategy is. If the Labour government and Labour Party as a whole really want to go back into the EU and really want stronger ties, then I'm afraid they're going to have to sell the message to the UK that we're doing terribly, that we actually do need to be in the EU, that we need them more than they need us. Yesterday, he was strolling up number 10 Downing Street, or the day before, a bit like me, no tie, collar open, happy to speak to the cameras to say, isn't it a great day? Net migration is down and we're the fastest growing economy in the G7. Well, whoop-de-doo. So the EU must also need us if they want to do a deal when it comes to goods, and particularly food goods. I've no doubt that an agreement can be made if there is the will on both sides to make it easier for both sides and for farmers and our agri-food sector. But if the EU are going to sort of, as I say, treat us the way that they have, it's nil pois from me, and we can do better off without them.
And it's au revoir from me. Benjamin, during a recent trip to Brussels, the Cabinet Office's top official on EU relations presented the idea to deepen the UK's economic relationship with the bloc, but in a sign of the challenge the government faces, says The Guardian, in securing growth, the EU have said no. Is this a failure of the government? They ran their whole campaign. Their mantra was growth, growth, growth. That's all we heard from Rachel Reeves. We've had pretty much, well, apart from the last quarter, I guess, no growth at all. Nothing that they promised anyway. And they're now trying to run back to the European Union to try and squeeze any last bit of growth they can get from, from any corner of the European Union.
Well, the problem with the likes of you is that you put ideology before the actual obvious answers. We know that since we left the EU, we have had rubbish, anemic growth, and part of that is because so much red tape and so many barriers have been put on British businesses that previously made great profits, had great trade with the EU bloc, for whom that became impossible. Marks & Spencer used to be one of the biggest sandwich sellers in Paris. Today, it doesn't sell a single one. Not because they lost their taste for ham and cheese sandwiches from M&S, but because the paperwork, the red tape, made it impossible to get those kind of foods across the border and to make it efficient and profitable. That has damaged Britain massively.
I can tell you're talking nonsense because, as the government will attest to, we are the fastest growing economy in the G7. Germany, some years ago, maybe even more recently, were on the precipice of recession. So if Brexit has harmed our economic chances, how do you square that one, Benjamin?
Well, because that's a nonsense argument. There are lots of things that play into our economy.
Not nonsense. Why is it nonsense?
It is because trading more with the EU doesn't mean that you would come in line with other member states' growth rates. It would say that we already have the 1% growth now, and we would be able to have more growth by trading with more people more easily.
We've got to go.
Well,
OK, thank you, Benjamin. Au revoir from me. Merci beaucoup. More coming up in the next hour, including this.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it? We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters. Real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good morning. Live from Washington, D.C., this is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America. And breaking tonight, GB News can exclusively reveal that Britain is at risk of losing its air bases in Cyprus, despite Defence Secretary John Healey previously declaring this.
We've got more fast jets in Cyprus than any other nation, and we're playing a big part in helping defend this part of the world.
Also breaking in America today, Tulsi Gabbard has resigned from America's top national intelligence job, saying she can't, in good conscience, leave her husband to fight cancer alone. And Taiwan shocker. President Trump halts a $14 billion weapons deal for Taiwan as China ramps up military threats around the island.
Taiwan does not want to see a fight for independence because that would be a very strong confrontation.
Are we alone in the universe? Hundreds of UFO files are released as an American intelligence officer admits seeing unexplained green orbs, discs and fireballs.
Economic growth is the #1 mission of this government.
Stamp duty disaster, and it is a disaster. Rachel Reeves' tax raid on home buyers is backfiring, and now the Treasury is losing money. Who would have thought, eh? If you're watching Chancellor, listen up, because I'll give you an economics lesson from America.
Our country is going to be a rocket ship economically.
I'm Ben Leo, and this is The Late Show Live. Good morning, happy Saturday. Welcome to The Late Show Live. Joining me in Washington this evening is my panel, Chief Strategy Officer at the New Lines Institute, Azim Ibrahim, and Chief Washington Correspondent at The Telegraph, Connor Stringer, and in London, political commentator Charlie Rowley, and journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth. Hello, you two. Thank you for your continued company. Right, let's begin this hour with some breaking news. Is reporting the Trump administration has been preparing for a fresh round of military strikes on Iran. It's understood that no final decision has yet been made, but circumstances, quote, pertaining to the government are keeping President Trump from attending his son Donald Trump Jr.'s wedding this weekend. He's missing his son's wedding, so something's going on. The president had planned to spend Memorial Day weekend at his golf property in New Jersey, but has now returned to the White House. Joining me is my panel, Azim, Connor, Charlie and Benjamin. Azim, I guess the most obvious sign is that he's missing Don Jr.'s wedding ceremony. I think he got married yesterday, actually, but he's missing his son's wedding ceremony this weekend. He's quit or cancelled his golf trip. Something is happening, and CBS News are now reporting tonight the Trump administration is preparing for a fresh wave of strikes.
Yeah, no, it's most unfortunate to actually hear that these attacks will resume. We also have the Pakistani army chief currently in Tehran trying to negotiate a final settlement. So hopefully something will come out of that and they can reach some sort of agreement so we can avoid this whole catastrophic situation. The reality is the Iranians have probably used this interim time of the ceasefire to rebuild some of their drone capacity, missile capacity, and they have threatened to target civilian infrastructure in the Gulf countries if these strikes go ahead. So whatever outcome it is, it's going to be quite a disaster.
Connor, what does this mean for Americans?
More pain at the pumps, a prolonged war. The foreign wars are ever-ending wars that seem to keep on going. It seems nightmarish, isn't it? The nightmare that doesn't seem to end for this administration and Donald Trump. It was supposed to be an easy war, but he was galvanized by Venezuela. It would be a smash and grab in and out, and here we are almost 3 to 4 months later with no end in sight. I spoke to some people inside the administration today, and those very close to the presidency were saying, look, if we're honest, we probably realise this turned into much, much harder than what we ever thought it was. The Iranians are entrenched in the Strait of Hormuz. They've caused an absolute global disaster, nightmare for oil prices. They completely underestimated their grip on that and their ability to close down one of the economic lifelines of the world. And now Trump is panicking a little bit and he needs a way out. That's why you're seeing the conversation shift towards Cuba very quickly. I also wouldn't read too much into him not going to his son's wedding. I'm told he was never fully planned to do that in the first place. But what is interesting...
What about the golf, though? He's missing the golf.
I agree, exactly. What it's exactly telling is that his golf, because he loves the golf probably more than his own son getting married. So to see him give that up in New Jersey is the biggest tell. And they normally have him back to the White House when there is an operational security issue.
Yeah, and I think he's staying at the White House now all weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. As the Trump said himself, Charlie Rowley, on Truth Social, there is an event pertaining to government information or something akin to that. So something's going on. This will have ramifications, of course, for the UK as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've just got to sit and wait. I know that sounds passive, but it's just the reality. This is America's
war. Sound like
war.
Keir Starmer, Charlie.
Well, if I was in number 10 advising Keir Starmer at the time, I would have said we should have helped a bit more. We should have been more active in helping the US use our RAF bases to go on and do the job, but get the job done quicker. We'll never know whether that would have had an impact or not, but the reality is the situation, as Connor said, hasn't evolved rapidly enough for the president's liking. It hasn't concluded rapidly enough for the American people's liking. There is now a global crisis when it comes to oil and gas. What I think is interesting is obviously the president has just come back from his state visit to China not so long ago, where Iran was raised and where Iran, China, Russia, Venezuela were all in alignment. I think the conversations that were coming out from that state visit was that China was also putting pressure on Iran to sort of give up the ghost. So whether this is just on the back of that, Trump feels emboldened. Maybe he's got the nod from China that if he really wants to take out Iran, there won't be any repercussions from China. I don't know whether that will be the case, but we've just got to now wait and see.
Yeah. Interesting concepts. CBS is reporting that some members of the US military and defence intelligence community have cancelled their plans for Memorial Day weekend in anticipation of possible strikes. I would suggest, though, Connor, I don't think the strikes would come this weekend, but maybe if we are going to get some, they'd come maybe early next week, and this weekend is for planning and prep.
Possibly. You have to remember we've had a ceasefire for what is rolling on to, I think, 40-odd days plus now. So the whole time, CENTCOM down in Florida, where they're based, have strikes and targets already set up. They're pinpointed, ready to go. All they need is the button. So actually, all they need is the call. Trump tonight, I was told by somebody, he's preferring diplomacy. He wants to give diplomacy another go. The Iranians are talking to the Qataris and to the Pakistanis. But it just seems like they're not budging. And the issues of nuclear, which is why this all started in the first place, it seems to be never-ending and never to be resolved.
Quick word from you, Benjamin. I seem to remember, correct me if I'm wrong, you were, like me, I still do support this conflict and taking out the Islamist despots. Do you still feel the same now?
Well, Iran, the regime of Iran is evil and a fundamental threat to the security of the rest of the world. So, yeah, it makes sense to take them out. The problem is that he's not taken them out. Iran clearly has a stronger hand than the Trump administration anticipated. I think in reality, diplomacy is going to be the only way to back down from this, because I don't think that it's looking like there'll be an outright win. Charlie raises a very good point. China is the biggest purchaser of Iranian oil, so maybe there were some significant steps taken at that visit. But I would say that, it strikes me that if there were going to be a big move during Trump's son's wedding, well, it probably wouldn't have made sense to say that that's what he was going to do, because that would not shock them. It reminds me of last June, when Israel took out Iranian nuclear facilities. And one of the very clever ways they planned that operation to surprise the Iranians was that Netanyahu's son was getting married, except that it wasn't his real wedding day. But they thought that Iran would never think Netanyahu would do that.
Is that
so
true?
his fake wedding day was when they launched the attack on Iran. So if you're going to use your son's wedding, you should use it in that way.
Some interesting comments from Alison. Again, another cracker, Alison. China needs the Strait of Hormuz / Iran oil. If Trump has agreed to sacrifice Taiwan to get Chinese help with Iran, then that's a disgrace. And George, good morning, George. You've said, Trump, please go and finish the job. Letting Iran play silly buggers is not a satisfactory end to the Iranian terror regime. Guys, thank you so much. We'll touch on this again before the night is out, and keep eyes peeled for any updates. Moving on to a GB News alert. The Pentagon has just dumped another batch of classified UFO files onto the internet, and some of the details are absolutely wild. They're mind-blowing. Glowing green orbs, fireballs, objects caught on military infrared cameras, making what the Pentagon calls instant acceleration. One US intelligence officer described seeing a high-speed object flying low to the ground before it suddenly split in two and shot off at speed. The Pentagon says there's still no confirmed evidence of alien technology, but they are, crucially, admitting there are hundreds of incidents they still can't fully explain. Well, let's get the thoughts of UFO researcher and award-winning filmmaker Mark Christopher Lee. Mark, welcome to The Late Show Live. What do we make of this? Are we alone in the universe? Is any of this stuff that's been dumped today conclusive evidence that this is alien technology?
I think we're getting there. I think there's far more in this round than there was in the previous. And there's some amazing videos that defy conventional explanation. You mentioned the instant acceleration video over Syria. And, you know, that craft is doing maneuvers that nothing that I know of or conventional aircraft can do. So it's definitely something out of this world. Whether it's extraterrestrial or not, I don't know. And there's another one at the Kazakhstan airport. But basically, it looks like something out of Close Encounters by Steven Spielberg. It's absolutely amazing. So, you know, we're still going through. There's a lot of videos, a lot of documents in there, but there's a lot of evidence that there's something unexplained in our skies. And the US military even shot one of these unexplained objects down in Michigan. F-16 pilots shot this unidentified object in the sky down. So it's like, you can't say.
Did they ever recover the UAP?
No, it's obliterated. So it was, you know, they can't say that these things are not a threat because obviously they are. They wouldn't be shooting them down if they weren't.
Yeah, I just wonder though, Mark, whether, you know, if the government does have alien bodies and crafts and definitive proof that there are extraterrestrial, there is extraterrestrial intelligence in the universe. I mean, I wouldn't trust any government to tell us.
No, Tim Burchett has just commented on this recent round of files, and he says the good stuff's still to come, and the deep state hasn't released these yet, so he's quite disappointed, which makes me wonder, maybe the files, you know, the videos with the bodies, with the evidence are still to come, but will we get them? Let's hope so.
Mark, you are an award-winning filmmaker, UFO researcher. Just tell me and my viewers one of the most extraordinary, I don't know, examples or stories or cases you've ever dealt with. Maybe one of the most definitive cases you think proves that we're not alone.
Yeah, I mean, I think we go to the UK with the Rendlesham Forest incident of 1980. I've just made a film about this. It's on Amazon Prime. And basically, you know, we got US servicemen, you know, decorated service people, and they saw something unusual happen. It's been documented, and what they saw caused them great ill health, that they've been medically retired. Something physical happened to these servicemen at Rendlesham Forest in 1980 that's still unexplained. I'm hoping there's going to be some files released in the next round that relate to, you know, this Rendlesham Forest incident, which happened in, you know, 2 US air bases in the UK, at RAF Bentwaters and RAF Woodbridge. That is the most definitive unexplained case that I've come across, and it still can't be explained to this day.
There was a chap on a US cable news show the other day saying that non-human bodies of varying species have been recovered from crashed UFO craft. It's one of your colleagues, Dan Farrar, filmmaker, citing accounts from senior intelligence officials. He talked about different species of aliens. You've got sort of reptilians, the greys and so on. Can you just elaborate on any of that? Is that true, or is that kind of fantasy?
Yeah, I don't know. I have a problem with different species of aliens. We don't know. You know, those are the common types that have been reported, but they're in pop culture now. So I find it a little bit hard to believe. I think with UFOs and UAPs, we have to realize that there's not one single explanation for all these sightings. There could be numerous things. There could be secret deep state technology that's been developed in highly secret ways that's kept in the black budget. It could be extraterrestrial. There could be something else. It could be interdimensional, something on a different plane of reality. There could be all these things. So there's no one simple answer, I think, which is difficult.
That's what I think. I don't think anyone cares what I think, but I think if aliens do exist, extraterrestrials, I think they're interdimensional. They're probably here taking human form. They can probably shapeshift. And I don't really think any of these, as much as I'd love to believe these files are proof of ETs, these things could be anything. And I keep saying, I don't trust any government to tell us plebs about the existence of alien life. Certainly not. Mark, thank you so much. Appreciate you being on the show. Yeah, go on, Mark, last word.
Yeah, I was just saying that there are some reports as well going back to the Foo Fighters from the Second World War, which is still unexplained. There's thousands of these reports by World War II Allied pilots that saw these plasma balls that were tracking the planes. So we're dealing with something unusual. This phenomena is not just extraterrestrial. It could be interdimensional.
Yeah, and if you really want to put your tinfoil hat on, apparently the Nazis were in touch with ETs, and that's where they're trying to get lots of their tech. But anyway, let's save that for an afters chat in a kitchen at 4 in the morning somewhere. Mark, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Mark Christopher Lee, UFO researcher and award-winning filmmaker. Great stuff. My panel's here, Connor and Azim. Connor, you were telling me in the break you were abducted once and probed by an alien.
I told you to keep that to yourself, big fella. Keep that under wraps. What a lot of nonsense this whole thing is. I mean, generally, common sense surely indicates they're only releasing this stuff to appease those like yourself who've been itching for it for some time. If it were real, I don't think they'd be giving you the green dots and what looks like drone footage from a random F-16 over Afghanistan, and claiming it to be extraterrestrial, would they?
But hang on, so you don't believe alien life exists anywhere in the universe?
I do not, no.
Do you know that's, scientists and mathematicians say that's pretty much impossible?
Yes, but scientists and mathematicians say have many things, but I don't think at the moment these videos coincide with what they believe.
Are you religious?
Yes.
You are? Yeah. Is that why you're doubtful?
No, not at all. And I'm absolutely open to it. And in fact, I enjoy, like most journalists, being proven wrong, or at least like the element of surprise thought. See what else is out there. But there's no way you can look at those videos and say, I mean, here's one on the screen now. What is that? It's just a plane in the sky, is it not?
It's on the moon. Azim, what's your take?
What about this? What is this? A drone? Just a random drone or being shot down by? I mean, there's no way you can look at that and see that as definitive proof of extraterrestrial life, can you?
No, but I mean, some of these reports, that these are objects which have been going at stupid speeds, splitting in two, accelerating up, down, left and right, which, defies the... Look at that. Did you see that? Actually, this is real. I believe it.
No, I'm not convinced at all.
Come on.
If you actually look at the National UFO Research Centre, they claim that 92% of all UFO sightings happen in North America. 4% in Canada. So essentially the entirety of UFO sightings happen within a very particular hemisphere. So what does that mean? That aliens don't like visiting other lands? The reality is people in the United States, Canada, UK are conditioned to look for these kinds of things. And I think the whole thing is essentially just blown way out of proportion.
But Charlie Rowley, apparently back in the Egyptian days with the pharaohs and so on, there were hieroglyphics of saucers engraved onto the walls of pyramids and so on. They were praising and lauding gods of fire in the sky. I mean, what do you make of that? Help me out here, Charlie.
I'm totally with you on this one, Ben. I'm fully qualified on this matter. I think you'll find. I'm with you. Look, the universe is far too big for us to even comprehend what lies out there. But we don't need to look too far, Ben, and chums out there. They live among us. They really do. In fact, I think there's one sitting next to me in the studio now, the former Benjamin Butterworth. Some of the things he comes out with, that is extraterrestrial. It really is. So I've no doubt that there is life out there, or even in here.
Benjamin Butterworth has been called a lizard once or twice in his time.
That's true. I mean, look, I've seen one or two people in my local leisure centre that look like E.T., but I'm still not quite convinced of alien life.
Bring my mother out.
I mean, look, on the one hand, I absolutely believe that what we would call aliens exist, i.e. it's extremely likely that there is some form of life somewhere else in the universe, but the idea that they pop down, you know, near your local Walmart at 8 p.m. and look exactly like something Steven Spielberg would have depicted, I think is pretty implausible. It's quite convenient that the people who see these things have profound beliefs in them before, and that they all look exactly like you'd expect them to look. So I don't think what we've got here is evidence.
Yeah, somebody... Go on, Connie.
I think you can find them anywhere. They're in the Green Party. I think that's
there was a comment here I'm trying to find. It was from a lady who wrote in last time telling me about her own experience on the Yorkshire moors. I can't find it. It's gone because your say is going so mad. This is one topic that really sort of sparks the imagination of our viewers and listeners. I can't find it. I'm sorry to that lady. Yeah, interesting. There's going to be more files dropping imminently. I'm hoping to do some sort of film, a road trip to Area 51 for GB News viewers, because as I said, there's so much interest in it. I am of the mind of JD Vance, Connor, who said, the Vice President, who said he believes in aliens, he thinks they're real, but he thinks they're interdimensional demons.
Demons.
Do you believe in demons?
Yes, yeah. But I think if you believe in God, you have to believe in demons.
Yeah, you need a polarity.
I agree, absolutely, yeah.
So why don't you believe in aliens then, if you believe in demons?
But why? I don't think demons are aliens, are they? Well, this is how we get around in circles. Here we are now. What is that exactly? I would be very intrigued to see you go to Area 51 now and decipher for yourself if you find these demons lingering around the gates of...
I've seen a few demons on the streets of DC, let me tell you. And they're mostly Democrats. Only joking. Joan, it was Joan who wrote this message. Joan Evans, good morning to you, Joan. You said, Ben, you kindly read out my email about witnessing a UFO with my friend on the Yorkshire moors. That was a few weeks ago, I think. There's no doubting, says Joan, what we saw with our own eyes. The silence, the incomprehensible speed, the complete lack of air disturbance. The only explanation is use of gravity. We are learning to do it now too. Slinging off the moon, for instance. No matter how scary it is real. Joan, thank you for that. Appreciate it. And somebody else has said, Connor, that chap on your panel says he's religious, so therefore he believes in God. I think that's you, Connor.
That's me.
He says there's no definitive proof of aliens. Well, there's no definitive proof of God.
Well. We'll leave that one to himself.
I guess with that, my response would be it's kind of a knowing. It's a knowing that your own divinity, the power of God.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing. I mean, the belief system, and what you believe in and whether you exactly the two are true. But I appreciate his point that if you don't believe in the Bible, then why would you believe in aliens, etc.
Yeah, great stuff. OK, thank you, viewers and listeners, for all your comments. There's loads coming in. I can't get through them all, unfortunately. Bobby said UFOs are just unidentified. Alien life does exist, but not how you think. It could be bacterial cell in another galaxy, but a billion years from now, it could have evolved. Look at our own existence. I agree. I think there's probably more advanced races and civilizations in the universe, probably less advanced civilizations than us. There is a sort of conversation that we are so spiritually unadvanced and devolved and wrong that we've been shoved to one dark corner of the universe without any friends for company because we're so morally corrupt. But there we go, conversation for another day. gbnews.com/your say. Still ahead on The Late Show Live tonight.
One of the most powerful deterrents we have to violent crime is the death penalty.
I love this. Another great story. A convicted triple killer in Tennessee was just hours away from execution yesterday before officials stopped his lethal injection. I'll reveal why and dive into that explosive debate about the death penalty, which is pertinent to the UK as well. Do we need to bring it back? Shortly, but still ahead tonight.
President Trump claims that Canada isn't a real country. He wants to break us so America can own us.
Globalist-in-chief there, Mark Carney, former governor of the Bank of England. It comes as a Canadian province is going to hold an independence referendum and could split Canada and join America. Just what's going on there, I'll explain shortly on The Late Show Live. Don't go anywhere.
Taiwan does not want to see a fight for independence because that would be a very strong confrontation.
Well, that was President Trump there speaking about the situation between China and Taiwan following his meeting with Xi Jinping in Beijing last week. But tonight, the US has paused a proposed $14 billion arms sale to Taiwan. The Trump administration insisted that the delay is about preserving munitions stockpiles during the war in Iran. But the decision has sparked concern in Taipei and fueled speculation following pressure from China. Now, Taiwan says it has received no formal notice of changes to the deal, which was expected to include equipment considered vital to the island's defence. The move also comes amid rising tensions over Taiwan and growing fears that the conflict in the Middle East could ultimately impact America's military commitments elsewhere. Well, I'm joined in the studio, delighted to say, by Kate Jones, geopolitical expert. Hello, Kate. Good to see you. Welcome back. This is all quite conveniently timed, isn't it, off the back of President Trump's visit to Beijing? What's going on here? What's your take?
I'm going to call this one strategic ambiguity. I think the president doesn't want to say to China, signal to China nor to Taiwan what the plan there is, or Iran as well, because there is for sure a problem with the number of weapon systems, Patriot systems that have been depleted, and he has the desire to be able to inflict upon Iran another round. So at the same time, this China-U.S. relationship is highly dependent on things going well between them over Taiwan, and they entirely disagree. So. But I think there's just one more piece to this that people don't think about, and that is that the United States is attempting to deter China from its actions in Taiwan, while at the same time being highly dependent on China for certain components that are part of modern warfare. So.
Somebody suggested, one of our viewers earlier, maybe cynical, maybe not, they said, is the fact it looks like we're maybe ramping up for further escalation in the Middle East with Iran linked to Beijing? Did President Xi say, you've got the green light to continue with Iran if you lay eyes off Taiwan and let us crack on with whatever we're doing there?
Definitely not.
No,
I really don't think so. I think that China would be more willing to help out and may have some background conversations going on with Iran right now. We'll see how that goes, but we'll never know.
Yeah.
But I don't think that is the case.
This $14 billion arms sale, so was this ever going ahead? Was it certain to happen, or was it just a proposed deal? Do you know?
Proposed, but those what they were looking for missile defense. So this is HIMARS and this is Patriot missile systems, and they are critical to the defense of Taiwan. So I don't think there's anything in there. While it was a very large package and larger than normal, I don't think there's anything unusual about that desire to have that defense for.
Whilst I've got you here, Kate, you're great on all this stuff. The viewers love you as well, by the way. Just a comment on Iran tonight. We've seen the president skipping his son's wedding this weekend. He skipped, maybe more importantly, a golf trip in New Jersey, and he said he's staying at the White House Friday, Saturday and Sunday for important events. What's your perception of what's happening here?
Yeah, I think that there's a very high likelihood that there will be more action or a ceasefire, but we're always in the same place with this. There's definitely continued activity to persuade Iran to the table and make an agreement, but there's also these conflicting terms both sides don't want to give up on. So.
And apparently, Pakistani officials who have been mediating a deal between the US and Iran, I think they're in Tehran this evening, there was, and maybe you can enlighten me on this, there was some conjecture, some rhetoric that the Pakistanis had been betraying the Americans in some way by leaking intelligence to Iran about this or that. Did you hear about that?
Well, only they were harboring certain Iranian.
That was it. Yeah.
Yeah, they were harboring them. It doesn't surprise me.
Would it surprise the Americans?
No. It's a funny situation where people expect the world to work the way it actually does, which is each one in its own self-interest, without tripping the line of upsetting the other so much that it becomes a conflict.
And I guess it was Pakistan as well who harboured bin Laden back in the day.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Just finally, where do you see the Iran conflict leading to? How does it conclude?
How does it conclude? Well, at some point, I think that there will be an agreement on the nuclear items. I think that one will be the one that falls, and that's where you start to get some kind of movement.
More bombs, though? More an escalation of violence before that?
Oh, this is a very hard one. I think the president is showing that he's absolutely prepared, and that's an important part of the negotiation.
And you don't think he's swayed by President Xi in China?
I think he's very interested in keeping that relationship, but then, she also has a problem at the moment that oil's not being shipped. So as long as even they sit there in a ceasefire, and they're still not getting the oil that they need, and that's critical to China.
And China was as well getting oil from Venezuela, right?
Well, once upon a time.
Yeah,
so
and
I was looking at these numbers of like 80% of Iran's exports of oil were going to China, but then I heard numbers that were closer to 90, and I was wondering what the gap was for the Venezuelan oil. But
was that direct to China or through Venezuela?
Venezuela was shipping it to China, but they have all kinds of ways to bypass sanctions, and that goes into, people don't generally think of Trump as being the sort of FBI of the world, but since he took office, one of the big pushes has been to get rid of the shadow shipping and the shadow economy. You see the Treasury acting on a weekly basis to shut down teapot refineries, illegal fuel shipments, going after those who have defied sanctions, and going after them in unusual ways and secondary sanctions. So it's kind of a different world in which the United States is using the fact that it has the dollar strength to go after the financial shadow economies.
Although Trump does want a weak dollar, doesn't he?
Well,
for exports?
I mean, in terms of the dollar as a currency standard.
Right,
rather than.
Last question. A few months ago, you may remember, in the English Channel, a few miles from where I live in Sussex, there was apparently a shadow Russian tanker making its way through, flanked by a Russian military vessel, which we just let them go through. Nothing happened. The Royal Navy did nothing. How extraordinary is that? What would have happened in America if that had happened here, off the coast of, I don't know, off the west coast or something?
I'm sure a phone call was made, and there was a decision that was made between the British and the Americans.
What, from Keir Starmer?
Even from Keir Starmer. I mean, this is the one thing that,
What's he going to do, call Putin?
Well, the UK is quite brilliant in its intelligence capabilities. I don't think that just went by without a conversation.
Yeah, OK. Hopefully. I can't imagine, though, Keir Starmer, maybe it wasn't Keir Starmer, John Healey or whoever, calling Putin or the Kremlin saying, oi, get your tankers out the English Channel.
Yeah, just
maybe they did.
As long as he doesn't invite them in.
Yeah, exactly. Kate, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Kate Jones, geopolitical expert. gbnews.com/your say. Let me know your thoughts on that. Right, still ahead on the Late Show Live tonight. Great story this. I keep banging on about it. The execution of a Tennessee death row inmate has been halted. Why? I'll reveal all shortly, and I think you'll be shocked actually. But still ahead tonight.
When it comes to choices on tax, this government chooses to protect working people every single time.
Well, the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, is about to get an economics lesson right here on GB News. Not from me, no, of course not, but from one of America's most outspoken commentators, good friend of the show. It's after it's been revealed that Reeves' most recent tax raid has ended up costing you and me and the Treasury lots more money. Who would have thought, eh? Back in a tick.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi there, welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. 30 Celsius today, and believe it or not, today is the coolest day of the bank holiday weekend. Some patchy cloud first thing, but increasingly sunny and increasingly hot. Perhaps the odd shower during the next few hours across East Anglia in the southeast as this area of cloud moves out of the way. And there's still some showers tickling parts of the northwest of Scotland through the day, generally light and fleeting. Cloudier for Northern Ireland, Scotland and Northern England. Temperatures not particularly exceptional here, high teens, low 20s. But come further south, and those temperatures are rocketing. We're looking at widely low to mid 20s and high 20s, up to 30 Celsius towards East Anglia and the southeast. High UV. Make sure you are bearing that in mind if you're spending time outdoors. But for Scotland, the cloud cover fairly continuous into the afternoon, breaking up a little by evening, showers tending to fade. And for many parts of the UK, yeah, it's cooler and cloudier in the north, but it's a fine start to the long weekend for the vast majority. Settled with high pressure in charge, and despite some high-level cloud across central parts of the UK, plenty of bright skies to end the afternoon and go into the evening. Clear spells then continue overnight. We will see a weak weather front bring some showery rain once again into the northwest of Scotland and thicker cloud overnight for Northern Ireland as well as Scotland. Highly variable temperatures overnight, some cool spots where we've got shelter from the breeze, but yeah, in some places, like London for example, temperatures staying up at 18 or 19 Celsius. So
head start on Sunday as far as the temperatures are concerned, and widespread sunny skies, certainly a sunnier morning compared with this morning. England and Wales, southern Scotland, blue skies, and temperatures really rising quickly. We're looking at high 20s widely, up to 32 Celsius in the south, always cloudier and cooler the north of Scotland.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Let's resume with a GB News alert. The execution of a Tennessee death row inmate has been postponed after staff were unable to find a vein to administer a lethal drug. The guy's name is Tony Carruthers. He was convicted of kidnapping and murdering 3 people in 1994. He was set to be executed on Thursday, but the state's Department of Corrections said that while its medical team did find a primary IV line to carry out the lethal injection, they couldn't find a suitable second vein to establish a backup line, which is required under lethal injection law. Tennessee's governor has now granted the inmate, get this, so they couldn't find the vein. The governor has now said, OK, you've got a 1-year reprieve and we'll try again in 12 months' time. So he's got an extra year on God's green earth. Azim, this is an extraordinary story. They couldn't find the second vein. He's now been allowed to go back to his death row cell and they'll try again in 12 months.
Yeah, I think a lot of nations that have the death penalty are probably looking at this and thinking this is just totally bizarre. You know, what happened to the good old times when they used to just hang people, and a lot of the, like in Saudi Arabia, they just kind of behead them, but they've made this process so complicated. And now the individual's got a 1-year reprieve, and you know, the victims, whoever they are, expecting swift justice, are now being delayed further on this.
Well, some states, I think even where was Charlie Kirk murdered? Utah. They have firing squads still.
Yeah,
which would be easier.
Yeah, which they do use as a second alternative to many. If like in this case, if they fail to file a vein, or they get a stay, and then they would resort to other means. And then there's also the experimental use of gases, other kind of medicines to kill quicker. It's extraordinary, isn't it, that you can basically wait all your life to your death in that respect, be right literally on your deathbed, and then be granted an extra 365 days.
Yeah, and do you back the death penalty?
Good question.
Bit of a moral conundrum.
No, I do. I think in the grand scheme of things I do, especially for the most heinous crime. The issue, of course, is that, as we discussed earlier in the show, with activist judges in different levels of accuracy in the justice system, you get mistakes, and there needs to be a better system whereby, with appeals, to allow any glaring errors to be addressed before a definitive decision is made.
Can I ask you though, and I had this same conundrum as well, as a man of God, a religious man, of course it says in the Bible, thou shalt not kill. So how do you square that? And it's something I researched myself.
I think it entirely depends on your foundation of faith, and I mean, faith aside, it's whether you believe in, I guess, as perhaps I do. I think you look at it both economically and practically, whether that sentence can help with a number of things. Number one is, prison overcrowding. Unfortunately, I mean, not that we should kill people for overcrowding, but if you have the severe most criminals who are on death row for the death sentence, you know, it's actually a very handy way to get through that and get through a lot of people.
I went to a few Bible study classes here, not because I'm particularly religious. I am religious. I believe in God and Jesus and whatever else. However, one of the main questions I had was that one I just posed to Connor. How come the Bible says thou shalt not kill? Actually, it says in the most simplest Hebrew translation as thou shalt not murder. And the pastor said to me, the death penalty is not considered murder. So that's how lots of red states like Tennessee, Alabama, Texas, that's how they sort of theologically get around it.
Well, that's a big difference, isn't it, between killing and murder in itself. I think most people would not support the death penalty if there was an appropriate punishment that was in the place of it. Remember when the death penalty was abolished in the UK, you know, the compromise that was made is that these people will be punished in the most swiftest and in the most severe manner. You know, life imprisonment was supposed to mean life imprisonment, but that's essentially now been done away with as well. And this is why a lot of people do support the death penalty, because so many people, murderers and rapists and so on, you know, child killers, police killers, they simply are not punished in any shape or form.
Yeah. I'm really interested in this topic because there's growing calls in the UK from the likes of Rupert Lowe to bring back the death penalty in Britain. One argument is that it's a lot cheaper. Why have somebody languishing in prison, taxpayer expense for decades? However, looking into this over the past couple of months, these people, like Tony Carruthers, they stay on death row for decades. Decades after being sentenced with the death penalty, which costs I mean, it's costing loads of money. Appeals, solicitors, often funded by, well, mostly funded by the state. So that argument doesn't really weigh up. This guy, Carruthers, he was convicted in 1996 for the kidnapping and murders of his mother and 2 other people. 2 men he murdered were beaten and shot. And 3 others were buried alive in a Memphis cemetery. It's such a fierce debate, this sparks. Let's get at the thoughts of Charlie Rowley and Benjamin Butterworth. Charlie Rowley, would you support the return of the death penalty in the UK for, let me just give this caveat, nailed-on cases such as actual Rubicana, Southport?
Well, it's incredibly tempting, isn't it? Because of the heinous crimes that man committed. But I always think, as angry as you are about the situation, and as much as you think that man has taken away the lives of, 3 beautiful innocent girls that were just taking part in a dance class, it's all too easy, I think, just to, administer an injection or pull the plug, or say they're, ending his life for what he did. I think that's too simple in a way. I know there'll be people who feel even stronger about it and think, well, no, they don't care. They don't want to see that man walking the freedoms. I mean, I think that he should be locked up for the rest of his life for 24 hours a day in a cell, not given the privileges or the luxuries that you see in some of our prisons, where they have Sky TV, PlayStations and the like. It should be incredibly solitary for him to be able to live out the remainder of his pathetic life and think every day about the crimes that he has committed and let that play on his mind and plague him, frankly. That's how I see it. The interesting thing about the story, just very quickly about Tony Carruthers, is that, I'm reading the full article, it does look as though the trial that he took part in, there were some issues along the way, so he had to represent himself. He didn't get any legal counsel. Some of the people that were witnesses or prosecuting against him, advocating against him, have recanted their statements. So this taking place in the 90s is incredibly difficult to go back and retrace all of those steps in that trial. I call me a conspiracy theorist, but I find this a bit too much of a coincidence or convenience that they weren't able to find a second vein because of maybe the fact that this might not be an Axel Rudabkana case where it is stone cold.
Benjamin, I actually yesterday I sent off a letter to a death row inmate in Florida. He's been in prison. He murdered a 5-month-old baby. He had trouble changing its nappy, smashed the poor baby's skull in and threw the body in a river. He's due to be executed in Florida on June the 2nd, and I wrote to him yesterday saying, because I'm making a film on the death penalty, would you be available for an interview ahead of your execution? I did some research, of course. This guy, his background, testimony presented in court showed that he had endured abuse as a child. His father was an alcoholic who physically and emotionally abused him and his sister until he was 4 or 5. When he was about 10 years old, the eventual killer, an uncle who was a supporter and a confidant died, and around the same time another uncle began sexually abusing him when he was 17 or 18. Then when he was 19, his sister died in a car accident which made the eventual murderer suicidal. I sent that to my mum and she said, there's always deep pain behind such crimes. We haven't evolved much as human beings when this sort of thing is still happening. Do you have sympathy for that guy who I wrote to and I'm hoping to speak to, who's getting executed on June the 2nd?
I mean, first of all, I really look forward to seeing that film because I always find hearing from people on death row incredibly interesting because it's such an unusual human experience to know that you're going to die. I don't like to use the word sympathy to describe someone who's done something so evil because I think you can't help but find that insulting to the loved ones of the victim and the victim themselves. But the point that it makes is that even when you can be sure, for example, because there's video footage that a person did something, there can be the sort of circumstances that make it fundamentally different to, or largely different to, another person doing the same act. You know, for example, if someone is being abused or blackmailed or threatened and then goes and does something horrific like murder someone, but they were not acting in free will, you know, would you still apply the death penalty to them? And so I think that's one of the complications which the simple argument that's saying, well, X crime deserves that punishment doesn't meet the test of. The other thing is, Charlie's totally right. I actually think one of the central problems with the death penalty is that it's a cop-out, because the only people that hurts is the loved ones of the person who did something appalling. They have to live with not having that person in their lives. The person who did the appalling thing never feels anything. They die in a painless way. They don't have to think about their actions. And also, if they have information, whether it's about other victims or about understanding how a human being comes to do something evil, well, we never benefit from that information because they're gone. And then the final point is that unless you're willing to lose your life as an innocent man for the miscarriages of justice that inevitably will happen eventually, then if you're not willing to lose your own life, then I don't think you should be willing to give the state the power to take an innocent person's life, which we know would happen eventually, because even to this day we hear of extraordinary miscarriages of justice.
But again, I go back to the point, great points as well about the families. Is it, again, this is something I'll be exploring, do the families of victims, do they support death penalties? Would they find closure and justice from seeing their child's murderer sentenced to death and lethally injected? I suspect there's differing opinions among different families. Connor, I go back to the point though. I support the death penalty for absolutely nailed-on cases where there's, admissions. I guess admissions can also be fake, but where, again, I'll go to Southport because it's an easy example, where there's just absolutely no doubt about who committed such crimes.
Yeah, and I can sympathise with that. But Benjamin does make an also good point. Is this actually, is death a cop-out so far that is, would be, rotting in jail for the rest of your life? Is it a far greater punishment? Is that the kind of, is that a greater punishment? Is that the kind of thing you want to see a murderer, a child murderer, endure and suffer for longer than a quick, painless death? Not sure. It's quite the toss-up, isn't it?
As a deterrent, though, is the death penalty a deterrent?
Well, this is it. This is the fundamental argument: is that above all else, it is a deterrent, and that's what I think the primary argument where it stands for. I think there's also the issue, and unfortunately, as you said, in UK prisons, is that we get to a point where people are, and child killers and rapists and murderers are languishing in jail cells that, if they're not in maximum security, they're pretty lavish housing. They're not exactly uncomfortable cells, and like you say, access to TV, PlayStations, they can write, they can do whatever they want. Which for me, it feels like actually over time, it's not a terribly bad life. So potentially, in those circumstances, the death penalty is the option.
Azim, some viewers have said, Tammy has said, Ben, putting animals out of their misery is an act of humanity. Some people are not able to atone and therefore seen as tormented souls. And Alison has said, an eye for an eye, Ben. Plus, if you can't do the time, don't do the crime. They never had these issues with the guillotine. 30 years on death row is insane. Lance the cyst.
Yeah, well, there's no easy answers to any of these things, but if you look at the United States, for example, where they have the maximum security prisons, particularly the supermax, for example, in Colorado, where they put terrorists and other real serial killers, that to me, if you look at the details on that, is actually a lot worse than any death sentence. You're literally locked up for 23 hours a day. There's no interaction with any other human being. Food is delivered to you, your cell door is open, you can walk around, you have no idea where you are. Spending the rest of your life like that, to me, is a much more significant deterrent. But the reality is, Ben, you touched upon one of the issues, the cost of holding people in prison. I'm not sure why it's not been further explored in terms of outsourcing our prisons. You can essentially build prisons in foreign countries that have capacity, reduce their cost dramatically. They have to ensure they meet the highest human rights standards, but essentially life should mean life for a lot of the crimes, outsourced in another country.
Big discussion in the UK about whether it should be brought back. Rupert Lowe leading the charge. Will it ever be brought back, Azim, yes or no?
I doubt very much.
Connor?
No.
Charlie?
No.
Ben?
No, and I might just add that part of that is because who would want to be the person doing that job if it were reintroduced?
Yeah, well, I'm sure you'd find some people. I mean, I'll tell you now, I would happily execute a child. Ian Huntley, Axel Rudabakana, I'd be up for it. There's a YouGov poll in November last year showing that more Brits support reintroducing capital punishment, 50%, than oppose it, 45%, so it's very close, 50 to 45%. A minority support bringing back the stocks, 21%, and flogging, 17%. So that's a YouGov poll from November last year. Right, thank you guys, great discussion. I'm really interested in this topic, both religiously, both morally, victims, and also from the psychology of the perpetrators as well. Right, gbnews.com/your say. Still ahead on The Late Show Live.
President Trump claims that Canada isn't a real country. He wants to break us so America can own us.
President Xi Jinping's busy mate there, Canadian province, is preparing apparently to hold an independence referendum that could tear the country apart and has even sparked talk of joining the United States. So what does Mark Carney think of that? Do you think parts of Canada will join the United States? I'm sure Trump would approve. But first, on the show tonight, Tulsi Gabbard resigns from America's top national intelligence job, saying she can't in good conscience leave her husband to fight a rare form of bone cancer alone. So who will be replacing her? More on that in just a sec. In other news, an online post has gone viral after a woman in America was handed a $500 restaurant bill and tipped only $40. Now, I think maybe this picture that was doing the rounds, it was a restaurant receipt, $500, the tip was $40. I think it may have been AI or fake, but it sparked a massive debate nonetheless. She says that the server looked at her like she'd committed a crime, the customer, and apparently the waitress was expecting a $120 tip instead for a $500 bill. So big question, has tipping culture completely lost the plot? And I will say, Connor, being here in America, it is completely alien to me tipping, but everybody wants a tip. You go into a coffee shop, Starbucks, you go into a kebab shop, and you pay on your card, and it says, you want to leave a tip? Like, for what? Giving me a coffee from the machine?
That, or you go to CVS or sometimes, or other retailers are available, and sometimes the self-checkout machines ask for a tip.
Oh, that's crazy.
Absolutely crazy. It is. As Brits, we're just not used to this level of tipping culture. And look, I appreciate it's a service, especially if you're paying for a good one. Why would you not pay for it? But in the circumstances like, as you say, self-checkout machines, even coffees, it's getting out of control.
Restaurants, a $500 bill at a restaurant, should you be tipping more than $40?
Absolutely. Yes, I think it should be 10%. Is it 10, 20% is the?
Well, no, it's 20%, isn't it?
20% now. Yeah. It's gone up dramatically.
10% is the UK, the general consensus for UK, if you get good service. But over here, I think it's 20%.
Yeah. It's essentially a tax, that they've added on, and you even see in some of the restaurants they have signs that say, tip generously, our staff are not paid well. And then this seems to be just a complete cop-out for employers not to pay their staff and asking the customer to actually fork out even a considerable more amount than the actual bill to keep the employees in employment.
I mean, why don't they just pay their staff more?
Yeah, well, obviously, if they don't need to, then they won't, and the customer to pay and make them feel guilty with these machines. That gives you the predetermined rates, 18, 20, 25%.
Right. And you're right, even the manner they do it, the way they present it to you with kind of in hand, like their whole face, their whole check, their wage depends on what you pick, as they turn away.
They shame you into it,
Absolutely.
I'm not a skivvy. I enjoy tipping. I like giving people money when the meal's been great or the service has been great, but I just feel like I don't think I should be obliged to do it. I will most of the time.
Yeah, well, this is one part of the US culture, once again, I think we should try to avoid in the UK. I just don't think it's conducive.
Yeah, it is. Let's get the thoughts of Benjamin and Charlie. It is coming to the UK, though, Benjamin, Charlie. I'm guilty of it. I was doing it years ago, and my mum would say, "Why are you leaving a tenner tip?" And she'd take the money off the table as we're walking out, and I'd say, "Put that back." But it's now becoming more prevalent in the UK, Charlie.
Well, I look forward to that tenner in the post, Ben, for being here this evening and providing such quality service. We already have in the UK a service charge that's put, if you're at a restaurant, for example, a service charge is already added to the bill. You can ask for that to be taken off, but that is incredibly un-British to ask to take something off. Or,
it's embarrassing.
It's embarrassing, even if you've had a terrible service. Us Brits tend to just sort of smile a little and say, "Oh, thank you. Yes, everything's going going terribly well and you just want to get out of there. You don't want to confront the issue, where I think in the American culture it's a lot more upfronting, and it's a lot more upfront. And if you want to tip more, then you do, to show that appreciation. But the one thing that is really grinding my gears, Ben, is that I think earlier this week, pints of lager in pubs tipped, you coined the phrase, £10. £10 a pint. That is an extortionate amount of money just for one pint. And yet you have people...
You're joking?
No, it was a news story earlier on in the week. There's some in London, central London, there are pints of lager going for a tenner. You could have taken that tip and bought me a pint. But what happens, apart from just the price of the pint being that expensive, you will just get people who I know work incredibly hard behind bars, but there is an expectation now to tip for somebody just pouring you a drink. That's not really a service, in my view. It's not good customer service, and so I don't tip that, I'm afraid. So there you go.
OK. Benjamin, who do you tip, if anybody? Taxi drivers, coffee shop workers?
Do you know, actually, sometimes, like if I had a great chat with a taxi driver and it's on one of the booking apps, I would gladly tip. You know, that's as you were saying. I really like tipping when they've done a great job. It makes me feel good. They've earned it. It feels like a fair situation. But besides that, I really hate it. I was actually, when I was in Cuba the other week, there was an American who was saying that he was explaining that in the US it's normal that they get like a few pounds an hour, a few dollars an hour, and so they literally can't live off their salary, and so the tip is essential, and that's why they did so bad during COVID. But besides that, I hate it.
OK. Thank you, Benjamin. Also, I wish the tips go to the staff as well, not the owners anyway. More coming up in the next hour on The Late Show Live, including this.
Our country is going to be a rocket ship economically.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi there, welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. 30 Celsius today, and believe it or not, today is the coolest day of the bank holiday weekend. Some patchy cloud first thing, but increasingly sunny and increasingly hot. Perhaps the odd shower during the next few hours across East Anglia in the southeast as this area of cloud moves out of the way. And then still some showers tickling parts of the northwest of Scotland through the day, generally light and fleeting. Cloudier for Northern Ireland, Scotland and Northern England. Temperatures not particularly exceptional here, high teens, low 20s. But come further south, and those temperatures are rocketing. We're looking at widely low to mid 20s and high 20s, up to 30 Celsius towards East Anglia and the southeast. High UV. Make sure you are bearing that in mind if you're spending time outdoors. But for Scotland, the cloud cover fairly continuous into the afternoon, breaking up a little by evening, showers tending to fade. And for many parts of the UK, yeah, it's cooler and cloudier in the north, but it's a fine start to the long weekend for the vast majority. Settled with high pressure in charge, and despite some high-level cloud across central parts of the UK, plenty of bright skies to end the afternoon and go into the evening. Clear spells then continue overnight. We will see a weak weather front bring some showery rain once again into the northwest of Scotland, and thicker cloud overnight for Northern Ireland as well as Scotland. Highly variable temperatures overnight, some cool spots where we've got shelter from the breeze, but yeah, in some places, like London for example, temperatures staying up at 18 or 19 Celsius. So head start on Sunday as far as the temperatures are concerned, and widespread sunny skies, certainly a sunnier morning compared with this morning. England and Wales, southern Scotland, blue skies, and temperatures really rising quickly. We're looking at high 20s widely, up to 32 Celsius in the south, always cloudier and cooler the north of Scotland.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray. Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it. Don't go listen to the BBC. Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. What we're going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good morning. Happy Saturday to you. Live from Washington, this is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America. And breaking tonight, CBS News reports the Trump administration is reporting that the United States is preparing for more military strikes against Iran. Also breaking tonight, GB News can exclusively reveal that Britain is at risk of losing its air bases in Cyprus, despite Defence Secretary John Healey previously saying this.
We've got more fast jets in Cyprus than any other nation, and we're playing a big part in helping defend this part of the world.
Elsewhere, a tragic exit. Tulsi Gabbard resigns from America's top national intelligence job, saying she cannot in good conscience leave her husband to fight a rare form of bone cancer alone. And Taiwan's shocker. President Trump halts a $14 billion weapons deal for Taiwan as China ramps up military threats around the island.
Taiwan does not want to see a fight for independence, because that would be a very strong confrontation.
The truth revealed, or has it been? Hundreds of UFO files are released as an American intelligence officer admits seeing unexplained green orbs, discs and fireballs.
Economic growth is the #1 mission of this government.
Stamp duty disaster. Rachel Reeves' tax raid on home buyers is now backfiring, and now the Treasury is losing money. If you're watching, Chancellor, listen up, because I'll give you an economics lesson straight from America.
Our country is going to be a rocket ship economically.
Hello, I'm Ben Leo, and this is The Late Show Live. Good morning, welcome to The Late Show Live. Joining me in DC is Connor Stringer and Azim Ibrahim, and indeed in London, they're still here, Benjamin Butterworth and Charlie Rowley, Premier League winner. I'll say it again because I'm never going to get over it. Well done, Arsenal. 22 years in the making. Right, let's start with a GB News alert. President Trump's Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, has resigned. She's quit, citing her husband's recent bone cancer diagnosis. Writing to the President, she said, "Unfortunately, I must submit my resignation, effective June 30th. My husband, Abraham, has recently been diagnosed with an extremely rare form of bone cancer. He faces major challenges in the coming weeks and months. At this time, I must step away from public service to be by his side and fully support him through this battle." President Trump responded by quickly praising Tulsi Gabbard, thanking her for an incredible job, and announced Principal Deputy Director of National Intelligence, Aaron Lucas, will serve as acting director. With me now is White House reporter for Politico, Diana Nerozzi. Diana, great to see you. Did this come out of the blue, really? Because I appreciate she's resigning for her husband's health, but I hear there were whispers on the streets of DC that maybe the administration wasn't fully on board with Tulsi and her sort of latter days of the job. What can you say?
Well, I think the announcement today was a surprise to everyone. Tulsi had been out of the news for the past couple months. And like you said, I think about last year, there were rumors about if the administration was happy with her, especially after her comments on Iran, indicating that in a congressional hearing, indicating that potentially Iran was not building a nuclear weapon, as the president had said. There was a little bit of back and forth between her and the president at that time, with Trump saying that, she may be a little bit different from me on Iran, but basically that was all good. And then things really died down for the last few months, for the last year. And then this announcement, again, out of the blue, Friday morning, and it just marks another departure by a woman specifically from the cabinet. And now there's 4 different positions where people have either resigned or Trump told them to leave. But yeah, very tragic situation. And from Trump's statement, at least it appeared that there was no bad blood here, and it was really about her husband.
Yeah, and best wishes to Tulsi and her family. Diana, just explain for our British viewers about how significant Tulsi Gabbard was to the administration, because she was formerly a Democrat, right? And she left the Democrats, maybe was it 2022, to become an independent. And she said that they were warmongering woke lunatics or something akin to that. So it was a real coup, wasn't it, to have her eventually become a Republican and join the administration, because I guess it proved that Trump's team, when he came back into the White House in January 2025, wasn't just sort of Republicans, it was ex-Democrats, including the likes of RFK Jr. as well. It was more about the message and the goal, as opposed to sort of towing party lines.
Exactly. And I remember when she joined the party, it was this big announcement in 2024 where she announced that she would be a Republican. She endorsed Donald Trump. And he took that endorsement and along with RFK and put her in the cabinet. So I think to him that just meant a lot, that she was this high-profile Democrat. She ran for Congress, she ran for president, and she came out and said, I am now a Republican, I support the president. And I think, for him, that means a lot. That was a big test of loyalty. And also, again, it was symbolic to show that he had a diverse cabinet, that it wasn't just Democrats, or excuse me, just Republicans, but he could bring people in from the other side of the aisle.
And just finally, Diana, Tulsi Gabbard, famously friends with Joe Kent, who was the former director of the National Counterterrorism Centre until a few months ago, a few weeks ago really at this point, when he resigned over the Iran war, saying that it wasn't America first, it's not what the American people were promised. He resigned with some controversy. He went on Tucker Carlson talking about it. Tulsi Gabbard is Joe Kent's close friend, we understand. What do we make of that and her resignation?
Yeah, at the time when Joe Kent resigned, there were questions, at least among the media class, between reporters, if Tulsi would be next or what her thoughts would be about the Iran strikes. We know that Vice President J.D. Vance was skeptical of the strikes. And given Tulsi's past record of being more hesitant about U.S. intervention abroad, we can only suspect that she would be closer in line with the likes of Joe Kent and Vice President J.D. Vance. But she really kept her head down and didn't make any public remarks about her position. So it's really hard to
Yeah.
know where she stood at the end of the day.
Yeah. Diana, thank you so much. Very grateful for you coming on to the Late Show Live. Maybe see you around at the White House soon. Connor Stringer and Azima here as well. Connor, Tulsi Gabbard, around 6 months before I think she took the job with the Trump admin, I think, or maybe even sooner than that, Tulsi Gabbard was in some congressional committee saying that Iran was nowhere near getting a nuclear weapon.
Yeah, that's the point. Actually, Gabbard's position was actually very clear, is that she was against the war. She was an isolationist. She had campaigned in 2024, in Trump's first administration against foreign war. She criticised Trump for being a neocon and pandering to the neocons. She was in the camp of J.D. Vance, where, remember, they were isolated from the original strikes. Trump was down in Mar-a-Lago, pressed the button, where they were hurried away in the bunker in the White House. Several times she was asked for a position, and she would never give a full-throated support, which was enough in politics these days to read between the lines and say, I'm not a fan. I think even actually back in the early 2020s when Trump was first in office, she even sold anti kind of Iran war T-shirts, which is quite funny.
Yes.
So all of this cements her position, and she fell foul of the president, who I think wanted to move past her at some point, and this has proven the chance to do it.
And Azim, she left the Democrats in 2022, I think, by calling them warmongers. So, I mean, is the resignation of Tulsi, yes, it's for her poor husband. Again, we wish him best wishes. But the likes of Joe Kent as well, who resigned over the Iran war, is this proof maybe that some of the MAGA base, or at least those who supported Trump initially in this administration, are now seriously questioning the direction of travel?
Yeah. Well, Tulsi's currency was going down anyway. There was rumours that she would be on her way out. The reality is people usually make the excuses when they step down, I'm stepping down for family reasons, I want to spend more time with my kids, but this seems to be a very genuine, legitimate case for her to actually step down. In fact, I would imagine that if she didn't step down in this situation, there will be questions in terms of why she's not stepped down to take care of her spouse in this situation. This is a very significant position, Director of National Intelligence. You have 18 intelligence agencies reporting to this one person.
Is there 18 intelligence agencies?
18 intelligence agencies with a budget of $115 billion, more than the defence and security budget of most NATO members. It's a very significant position, so it'll be very interesting to see who fills this.
That's insane.
It's huge. It's absolutely huge. It's a big job. But also, what a lot of people are really talking about is what a blow this is for MAGA, because she is MAGA through and through. She had a lot of support. She was anti-foreign war. She was pro-America first. And she now finds herself outside of the administration. So that's a loss for them. And they will feel like she was either right or wrongly, forced out, or obviously in extremely poor circumstances. We want to see her kind of make a comeback, I'm sure, in at least MAGA circles at some point.
Yeah, and she's a great lady. Was she a combat veteran?
She was, Army lieutenant,
Yeah, great CV. Blows my mind, there's 18 intelligence agencies.
Yeah.
So let's go through them. CIA, FBI,
CIA,
NSA.
There's just so many. Homeland Security have got their own Defence National Intelligence, Counter-Terrorism Centre. There's just so many that focus naval intelligence. There's just so many that have different areas of expertise. And the role of DNI was to coordinate it all, because remember, after 9/11, the issue was that intelligence agencies were not communicating with each other. Some of them did have the intelligence on the hijackers. They did not share it with others. And the purpose of the DNI, Director of National Intelligence, was to essentially marry that all together and present the president with the PDB, the Presidential Daily Briefing, to ensure it's fully comprehensive.
I'm not surprised they need somebody to bring them all together. I mean, surely that's too many cooks.
I mean, it's the mark of American bureaucracy here, isn't it? Which the stereotypes that things are overly complicated. There's always a government department for every single thing you do here. I mean, I don't know about you, but it took me about 6 months even to get my social security number, because you had to jump through so many hoops. And Azim is absolutely right. You have to understand the history of why they did this, and it was because 9/11 was a massive failure, and they had missed the attackers purely because the intelligence agencies weren't communicating with each other. Otherwise, they would have stopped that attack.
So I've got a list here: the Defence Intelligence Agency, DIA, National Security Agency, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. What's that? imagery and mapping, National Reconnaissance Office, the Army Intelligence, Navy Intelligence, Air Force Intelligence, Marine Corps Intelligence, Space Force Intelligence, the FBI, Drug Enforcement Administration has their own intel, DHS, Department of Homeland Security, Coast Guard Intelligence, the Department of State, the Bureau of Intelligence and Research, Treasury. The Treasury have their own Office of Intelligence.
Yes,
what's that for? Fraud?
Financial intelligence, fraud.
Yeah, financial intelligence, cyber crimes, etc., cyber crimes, etc.
And the Department of Energy, Office of Intelligence and Counterintelligence.
Oil, gas, etc.
Mate, that just sounds ridiculous.
Well, look, America's big beast, and thankfully they've got the budget they can do it, and that shows you the scale of which they operate. I mean, everyone kind of mentions about American intelligence, and are they really looking at got an eyes for everything? They've really got eyes for everything.
Yeah, and there's probably some also off the books sort of intelligence squads as well, isn't there? Right, there we go. Tulsi Gabbard, she's out, and I admire her actually. She's a great lady. Right, still ahead on the Late Show Live tonight.
President Trump claims that Canada isn't a real country. He wants to break us so America can own us.
Apparently, a Canadian province is going to hold an independence referendum and could split from Canada and globalist-in-chief Mark Carney, that would be good, and join America. Just what's going on there, I'll explain shortly. Back in a sec.
This government has the right economic plan. Yeah. We promised to grow the economy, and we have. We promised to cut inflation, and we have. Yeah. And we promised to cut the cost of living, and we are. Yeah. But the conflict in the Middle East poses a significant challenge to the world's economy, including our own. I have not shied away from my criticism of the war. I believe it to have been a mistake. Yeah. Nor have I ignored the costs that it will bring to bear on the British people. I have been clear-eyed about my duty to do what I can to support families and businesses.
All right, here's a tax that really grinds my gears. I mean, all tax does, inheritance tax does, but this one actually grinds my gears proper. Rachel Reeves' stamp duty raid is backfiring. That's according to brand new data from the Treasury, and the numbers are absolutely brutal. The Chancellor hiked stamp duty, dragged more homes into the system, and promised the Treasury would cash in. Well, the truth of the matter is that property sales have slumped, they've plummeted. The government's actually lost money as well. So it's almost like if you punish people for moving house, eventually people stop moving house. Who would have thought, eh? Basic economics. And this is where America becomes really interesting tonight, because in huge parts of the US, there is no equivalent to Britain's stamp duty at all, especially in red states such as Texas, Florida, Nevada, because many economists, and especially Republicans, they see those taxes as economically damaging. With me now is political strategist and podcast host, friend of the show, Tiffany Marie Brannan. Tiffany, hello. Hope you're well.
Hi.
You don't have stamp duty in most American states, do you? Although I would say you do have property tax. What is that? What's the comparison?
So actually, if you want to look at all 50 states, every state has wildly different laws, but across the board, you're going to see 14 states that don't have any kind of what would be the equivalent of a stamp duty. Now, all the other states have, it could be as low as 1.5 to 2%. It could be higher than that. I know states like California, New York, you're going to get a lot more of the European sort of pricing. But something to remember as Rachel Reeves goes off on this is that the beauty about America is that we don't pay the highest property taxes in the world, which is what the United Kingdom does. And when you look at what she's doing with the money that she's trying to squeeze out of the British people, I mean, it's $14 billion a year that they are getting annually from the British people with the stamp tax. And they were bragging about how 39 billion of it's going to pay for social services and affordable housing and, social programs. Well, I love to talk to the people that are on the NHS wait list for 18 weeks or almost 5 months. I'd love to see where all that affordable housing is going, and if it's even going to the British people or to migrants. And in America, we don't have that. We have a lot more checks and balances. We're not perfect by any means, but we revolted when you guys gave us a 2% tax on our tea in Boston back in the day. So we really don't like taxes.
Yeah. The tax, so home buyers in the UK paid £4.3 billion in stamp duty in the first 4 months of this year. That's down around 6% compared to the same period last year, and that's from government figures. And the Chancellor, of course, she lowered the threshold at which stamp duty was paid in April last year from 250k to 125k. So that raised the bill on average priced homes in England by £2,500 for each and every purchase. It just seems, I mean, by the way, Liz Truss wanted to, did Liz Truss want to scrap stamp duty totally?
She's the one that lowered it. The one that lowered it in 2022.
Yeah, it's an awful tax. And by the way, this came at a time when this is isolated. Okay, fine, you could maybe understand Rachel Reeves' thinking, but it comes at a time when interest rates are a lot higher than they used to be. You know, even 5 years ago in the UK, you could get 1% mortgages. Now mortgage rates are on average around 5% for a 2-year fix. So the housing market's already being stifled. People can't afford to move house anyway. They're choosing to stay at home, maybe do renovations, maybe extend into the attic or the loft. So she did this at a time when the market's already being stamped into the ground with a heavy boot. I just don't understand what she was thinking.
Well, and not only that, Ben, but the average home in the United Kingdom now, at least in most city and urban centers, it's hovering around $300,000. It's in the 200 pounds. It's in the 200-something pound range at this point. So the fact that she lowered the threshold so significantly, it is putting this burden on almost every hardworking British and United Kingdom citizen that is just trying to make ends meet and pay for their families, you know, groceries and petrol, although they tax those too. So it's really, really absurd that they think they continue to raise taxes on the people of the United Kingdom and that there isn't going to be a backfire and a slump if they believed in the sort of free market principles that America is so proud to sort of wave their flag for. I bet that you'd see a boost in housing, a boost in economy, and overall a happier British people.
Yeah, indeed. Well said, Tiffany. Where are you? On your travels somewhere? What are you doing? When are you back in DC?
I am. I'm in Los Angeles currently talking about, you know, a crazy, crazy state that is overtaxed. Hopefully Spencer Pratt wins mayor of LA and fixes the city. And then I'm back in DC on set with you guys next week. So you better watch out for that one.
Oh, yay. Great stuff. Safe travels, Tiffany. Thank you. Appreciate you as always. And we'll see you soon. Political strategist and podcast host, Tiffany Marie Brannan. Right, let's get the thoughts of my panel. Azim, Connor, Benjamin and Charlie. Connor, the average wage in the UK is, what, something like 35k? Which, if you go to get a mortgage, the multiplier is what, around roughly times 5. So you can only really borrow 175k. And the average house price is, what, just shy of 300k. So nothing works. It's all messed up. It's all gone Pete Tong. And yet Rachel Reeves thought it was a good idea to raise stamp duty on moving home.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, first-time buyers obviously avoid that, but you're absolutely right. It's difficult, isn't it, even to get on the housing ladder now, and when you are on it, if you do want to move home. And traditionally, the best way to build up your wealth portfolio was by selling houses and making making money across the few, but that's becoming more, maybe next to impossible now with what she's doing.
Yeah, and that has ramifications all across the board because people don't have families. Yeah. They don't want to start families, Azim, if they haven't got housing, if they can't raise a child in a safe home that they own. The birth rate goes down. They then arguably nations import immigrants because they're replacing people, so it has massive ramifications. It's not just about saving a couple of quid on stamp duty. It has stark effects all the way down the line.
Absolutely. One of the reasons why people feel part of society, feel part of the community is home ownership. All the evidence shows that at a time when the government should be doing absolutely everything to make that as conducive as possible, they are bringing in these kinds of ideas and taxes, which is essentially having the reverse effect, clearly. And once again, I think it's just one of these things that they just have not thought through, and it's much more ideological driven than any practical considerations at all.
You know, I really dislike governments at times getting their grubby mitts on people's hard-working money. You know, inheritance tax when somebody dies who's been grafting all their life to maybe leave something for their kids, and the greedy, legalised mafia government comes along and says, yep, swipe on our 40% of that, you absolute vultures. And then Charlie Rowley, again, you're moving house, oh yeah, by the way, you asked 30 grand or whatever it is. It's just, I find the whole thing disgusting.
Well, that's why I think for all the woes within the Tory party after the last couple of years. Kemi Badenoch got huge support for wanting to scrap stamp duty for first-time buyers. That brought the conference hall alive last year when she was delivering that speech as party leader. So a positive thing maybe for some people to look forward to if that comes to fruition, or if the government decides to change tack completely and take that policy, they're absolutely welcome to it, because you're right. It's additional money going to the state when hard-working people have saved up, they want to move house, they want to be able to grow a family or have a family and move house into a bigger property. They can't get on that housing ladder, they can't trigger off that chain if people are unable to afford buying in the first place.
Yeah, and I guess there is me moaning about stamp duty. I hate it. I actually hate all tax, but don't tell HMRC. But it's 16 billion quid last year, Benjamin, that stamp duty raised for Treasury coffers. And if you do scrap, I mean, not that I would ever become Prime Minister, but if I was, I'd scrap it. But where you find that replacement £16 billion, I don't know. Welfare bill?
Well, exactly the point I was going to make. It raises an enormous amount of money. So it is simply fantasy economics to think that you can live without £16 billion, especially with the state of public finances that Britain presently has. I think actually most first-time buyers are not eligible for stamp duty.
You'd cut welfare, wouldn't you? Get rid of that 16 billion, well, cut welfare.
But I mean, actually, I would cut 16 billion of welfare, and I would cut it off pensioners.
The pensioners,
because the triple lock means that the cost of pensions is rising by £10 billion every year. So actually, you know what? I think I've just changed my mind for supporting stamp duty. No, actually, I mean, no, I really actually think that's a good point, because it's often the pensioners who bought their properties for very little 30, 40 years ago that now have very valuable properties. So why don't we stop giving them state money and use the money that saves to help younger people trying to start families, be able to go up the ladder? Actually, not the worst idea in the world. But if you're not going to do that, then the idea you can save 16 billion quid is for the birds.
No, we're not doing that, and I don't propose we do that to our hard-working pensioners who have grafted all their lives to build to get into their homes, raise families in their homes. Their kids have now flown the nest, and now you're trying to boot them out of their sanctuaries they've lived in for decades and decades. You want to do that to an elderly, vulnerable person? I think you're utterly wrong. Although I would say, if you do want to pursue that, if you do want to pursue that, would you maybe suggest to encourage pensioners to move homes, maybe if they do want to downsize? Why don't they introduce maybe no stamp duty on pensioners who are moving or downsizing?
Well, I think we have a massive problem that you have a lot of wealthy retirees that have had a very comfortable life and been rewarded far heavily than any of their children or grandchildren have the opportunity to, and they live in 4 or 5 bedroom houses. Meanwhile, people trying to start a family can't get in there. So actually, I think it's completely ethical that they should move out. And it's not their fault, but it's their decision to hoard those houses and affect the market and stop families from being able to move into them. And that's why inheritance tax is one of the fairest possible taxes there can be, because it's completely false to say that people have already been taxed on that income, because for most people, the people that are dying at this point in time, the majority of their income is unearned. It's from the inflation in the value of their house or houses. And so we should be able to access some of that money from the crazy situation that's blocking young people from the market, and we should take some of that wealth so that we can help other people rather than... Because I tell you what, I'd rather take a proportion of someone's £1 million house they bought for 80 grand 30 years ago than charge people that are going to work, working 40 hours, that can't even afford to rent somewhere decent.
Benjamin, keep your grubby mitts, you and your commie government, away from any estate, any commodities or stocks and shares and property. People graft all their lives to get hold of properties or assets. The last thing they want, or anybody wants, is the greedy Soviets coming along and taking their swipe. Inheritance tax is the most... Charlie Rowley, what's your take on inheritance tax? For me, I find it one of the most disgusting, despicable, evil taxes in the world.
Oh, you're absolutely right. You'll always get this, politics of envy, because someone somewhere has done well, or they've got lucky maybe because of inflation or whatever. But most people, to your point, Ben, work incredibly hard. They graft day in, day out. They save their money. They invest in property. Pensioners, by the time, if they are in the plush houses that Benjamin thinks that they're all living in, they are asset rich, yes, but very cash poor. But that,
my heart bleeds.
But that asset is, well, these are pensioners that your government, or the government that you support, which tends to be a left-wing government under the Labour government, took away winter fuel allowance for pensioners. You've got a real problem with pensioners in this country. Who are, I find it absolutely astonishing that these are people that want to pass on an asset to their kids and their grandkids. There is nothing wrong with that.
I respect my elders, but they should show some respect back to the young people who they are holding by the throat in the way they've treated this economy.
You earn that respect.
You know, the average pensioner...
It's not given by default.
The average pensioner now has a higher income than the average person in their 20s. Most of the wealth that has been gained in the last 15 years has gone to retirees. It is a completely unsustainable system. That will be passed on.
That will be passed on from pensioners to their kids, to their grandkids.
When you have to wait till 60 when your parents die, which is probably what most aged people are, in order to be able to get the money to buy a house, it's a completely absurd system. The fact that we have this triple lock that means that pensioners have got as much as 10% rises each year in recent years is totally unsustainable.
They deserve it.
And anybody who's serious about public finances, about the housing market, has to confront
welfare of people that are claiming benefits that don't need to. You can start there tomorrow. No, not like pensioners, like
so
people.
What do you want to do, Benjamin? You want to behave like a vulture in the Sahara and dance on the graves of pensioners who have died and take their inheritance and then do what with it? You trust a government, any government of any colour, some insane institution, legalised mafia, to go and spend that money wisely. I think you'd probably find far more people happy to contribute to the Treasury and the tax coffers, and indeed inheritance tax, if they saw the government spending their money properly, not spaffing billions and tens of billions on net zero and 10 billion a year on benefits for foreigners and all sorts of nonsense, asylum hotels. You know, spend the money wisely. Maybe people will be more sympathetic with that kind of argument. Joan has said on your site, this is for you, Benjamin, you're getting some flack now from the viewers, rightly so. Joan has said, Ben, oh no, sorry, that's about UFOs. Sorry, where is it? We're going on a tangent. Where is it? Oh, you're a reptile.
Said with
I can't find it. Here it is. It's from Joan again. It was Joan talking about UFOs, but she's now talking about pensions. She said, I'm 74, self-employed with small pensions. My business and I pay 40k tax, but I earn about 15k. The government earns far more than I do for my work. Obviously, I'm thinking I must be crazy. Should I jump ship? According to Ben, I should. 15 people will directly lose their jobs, more as an effect. The community I serve will lose the service.
You know, if you're 75 years old, the average person of that age will take out £350,000 more from the state than they pay in if they live to the average life expectancy. That is completely absurd, it is unsustainable, and it is unfair. And there is nothing left-wing or commie about saying that. Quite frankly, it's about being realistic about public finances. I'm a Blairite, for God's sake. It's hardly a communist.
But what I think is we're fundamentally missing in this conversation is that as you get older, we have a social care crisis in this country. People are forced to sell those homes to pay for their care because they are living longer. They're living in care homes where...
Who else is going to pay for it, Charlie?
Well, but you wanted to get rid of their homes a second ago, so you're going to be turfing pensioners out of their homes where then they can't have even the money to pay for adult social care that they'll need when they get even older.
This doesn't make sense.
Go on, Benjamin, last word to you.
I was just going to say, when you've had a house that is inflated potentially by 10 times in its value, and then you need social care, which is extremely expensive, I think it's entirely fair that society and a state says that some of that massive inflation in value, which came about not by your hard work but by good fortune, should pay for the costs of that social care. Because why should a working person on an average income with a much worse quality of life be covering it? You should be able to cover your own costs, and I'm afraid I don't think that's a left-wing idea at all, and it's also inevitable because we can't keep paying out the money we are right now.
OK, all I say is a nation can be judged on the way it treats its children and the elderly, and the elderly, for the most part, have grafted hard. They built this nation, they raised children, and they deserve respect. And so even if that's true, they take out 350k in their latter years. Good, they deserve it. Look after the elderly. Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you, Charlie, Azim, Connor. A Treasury spokesperson has said first-time buyers pay no stamp duty on homes worth up to 300 grand and can claim relief on purchases up to £500,000. Stamp duty also raises £14 billion a year to help fund essential public services. We've overhauled the planning system, invested a record £39 billion in social and affordable housing, and supported developers to get on and build and weather any geopolitical pressures. OK, that's fine then. Let's bring you some breaking news which has just entered the GB newsroom. President Trump's daughter, Ivanka Trump, was targeted for assassination by an Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps trained terrorist. This is fresh breaking now. That's according to the New York Post. Recently captured Mohammed Bakr Saad Dawood al-Saadi reportedly made a pledge to kill Ivanka and even had a blueprint of her Florida home. The Iraqi national was allegedly targeting President Trump's family in response to the killing of Iranian military chief Qasem Soleimani in a US drone strike in Baghdad 6 years ago. And it was President Trump, of course, who gave the go-ahead for that strike. Al-Saadi also posted a picture on X of a map showing the enclave in Florida where Ivanka and husband Jared Kushner have a home, alongside a chilling threat which in Arabic translated to, "I say to the Americans, look at this picture and know that neither your palaces nor the Secret Service will protect you. We're currently in the stage of surveillance and analysis. I told you our revenge is a matter of time." Chilling stuff. Al-Saadi is said to be a high-ranking figure in Iraq-Iran terror circles, and he was arrested in Turkey on May the 15th. Picture now on your screen. And he was extradited to the United States, where he's charged with 18 attacks and attempted attacks throughout Europe and the United States. That's according to the Department of Justice. He's been behind attacks on US and Jewish targets, including the firebombing of the Bank of New York Mellon in Amsterdam in March, the stabbing of 2 Jewish victims in London in April, and a shooting at the US consulate building in Toronto, also in March. That's according to the DOJ. So just to repeat, and there's pictures on your screens now, this is breaking news from the New York Post this evening. A man has been arrested for targeting Ivanka Trump, the daughter of President Trump, wife of Jared Kushner, and he's apparently an Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps trained terrorist, as according to the New York Post. He made a pledge to kill Ivanka and even had a blueprint of her Florida home. Azim, your reaction to this breaking news? Shocking stuff.
It's shocking indeed. Look, we don't know if this is an officially sanctioned operation by the IRGC or if this individual has simply passed through one of the training camps he was trained by IRGC. The IRGC is a massive organisation, multiple offshoots, multiple militias. You know, it could be the case that he's probably just one of those individuals that has some sort of loose affiliation with them and decided to take this upon himself.
This is quite chilling, Connor, because we've just come off the back of the third assassination attempt on Donald Trump at the White House Correspondents' Dinner some weeks ago. There was that Melania Trump documentary on, was it Amazon Prime, where she talks about how terrified she is for the safety of not only her husband, but Barron Trump and the rest of the Trump family. And again, we hear another attempt, this time on Ivanka, his daughter.
Yeah, and this attempt, I mean, obviously breaking news this evening, and often with these attempts or these planned attempts is that sometimes they can be played down because they haven't been acted or followed through. But this guy is a seasoned terrorist. You know, as you mentioned there, thought to be responsible with some genuine attacks and horrific attacks in the last couple of years alone. Donald Trump and his family, I hope, are being surrounded by the best of the best of the Secret Service, because this is becoming a serious scandal and issue. These are the threats that we're hearing about, the actionable ones that are being treated and caught just in time. I was at the White House Correspondents' Dinner when the gunman tried to storm in there and take the president's life. The third assassination attempt in 2 years, 3 years, in as many years, which is extraordinary and politically unheard of. He is a polarizing figure, but there's absolutely never a need for this kind of political violence.
And what was I going to say? Sorry, my mind's gone blank. The IRGC, this gives weight, Azim, to the Iran war. This is what President Trump is talking about. This is, again, you said that, you know, we don't know whether it's a directly linked IRGC order, but he was an IRGC trained operative, and he's behind a spate of other terror attacks, stabbing Jews in London and attacks on Mellon, the bank in New York City. Again, this is the IRGC. This is why President Trump is going after Iran, and particularly the IRGC and their despot Islamists.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Ben. And, you know, there's a lot of discussion right now with the Iran situation about the uranium, about the Strait of Hormuz, but the reality is one of the big issues that we just don't get enough attention in the West is the IRGC and its militias. You know, they have actually caused chaos in the entire region. They have actually killed more civilians than almost everybody else put together. Not just the IRGC, but the Hashd-al-Shaabi, the Fatimiyya militias, the Houthis, etc. And, you know, any deal with Iran has to address that issue, the chaos that they're sowing throughout the region and throughout the world.
I mean, do we not at this point, if you're President Trump in America, do you not just as I keep describing it, turn the screw on Iran and just take them out militarily? I wouldn't want to come to a deal with them.
The issue is that they are so heavily embedded, and we've seen that they've tried very hard to wipe out their air defences. They've done up to about 70% of that already, we think. But the Iranians and the Persians, they're entrenched, and they have, which is a bit of a kryptonite, the kind of the secret weapon, which is their grip on the Strait of Hormuz. Unfortunately, economically, that is doing equally as much damage to America as America is bashing them.
And just kind of explain, if you know, what's Ivanka up to these days? She was in the previous administration, right, but no longer. And of course, Jared Kushner is the envoy, peace envoy.
That's right, Jared Kushner, special envoy. She's taken a bit of a step back this time round because she wanted to be closer to her kids, I think, out of the spotlight. There is always talk on the run-up to 2028 that whether the torch and the flame will be passed to a family member. She's probably actually one of the prime candidates for that. She's modelled herself very well off her father's politics, but she keeps herself very much to herself, seen only at the major events with and when she's supporting her father.
Azim, are the Trumps safe anymore from doing sort of public events and public appearances? Because after the Correspondents' Dinner attempt, I think Trump was asked in the briefing room, he said, look, after Butler, Pennsylvania, the assassination attempt which skimmed his ear, unbelievably, he stopped doing outside rallies, really. Is that right?
Well, yeah, the Secret Service has encouraged him, or at least at post then, to do indoor only, which in very Trump fashion he said absolutely not. I want to go out there and speak to the people and face them head down. I mean, at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, he was absolutely desperate to come back on stage all the way until the Secret Service told him, absolutely not, we need to get you out of here to the White House where it's more secure. He is, we think now, from multiple reports, wearing a bulletproof vest when he's in public.
The president?
As part of there's several reports already that suggested that that's been among some of the measures that they've given him when he appears outside, which would make, of course, absolutely sense given the issues he's facing already.
Oh, wow. So at, say, rallies or talk, he was in New York earlier today, he likely would have been wearing a bulletproof vest under his suit.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the measures that the Secret Service would have at least considered with rallies that are large and outdoors, that it's harder to implement their kind of circle ring security structures, they call it. It's entirely likely that he wore that.
Oh, Azim, what would you do if you were the Trump family? I guess you just have to rely on the Secret Service.
I think that's basically it. You know, the Secret Service had some questions to answer in the previous Trump assassination attempt. They simply dropped the ball, and I would imagine they learned the lessons and enhanced the security dramatically. But look, the reality is Trump is a public figure. You know, he has to go out there, he has to engage with the public. Being indoors all the time and being surrounded by this wall of iron is simply not going to work. So the onus is on the Secret Service to enhance their intelligence capabilities. We have 18 intelligence agencies, as we were discussing earlier, with a $115 billion budget. So we'd imagine that they have a fully comprehensive picture of exactly what is going on. So the onus is on them to ensure that the president and his family are fully safe all the time.
Yeah, well said. Let's get the take of Charlie and Benjamin in London. I guess, Benjamin, this gives sort of prominence to the question as to why still the IRGC, I mean, there was in the King's speech, wasn't it, the prescription of the IRGC, but why it took so long for Labour to crack on with it, especially when they promised to prescribe them as soon as they got into power. This guy trained by the IRGC.
Into the IRGC and its operations in the UK before it became a big news story thanks to recent events. And actually one of the suggestions put when the Conservatives also declined to prescribe them was that actually it was at the request of the US administration because they wanted an avenue for dialogue, and the UK not prescribing them was that. So who knows if that's been one of the reasons in recent years. But what I'd say on this, on the assassination attempt, I suppose, the report of Ivanka Trump, is that first of all, of course, that's obscene. You know, what an appalling thing to have to be subjected to. Secondly, there was no chance they would succeed. They have the most extraordinary intelligence and protection services. But I'm also going to express a degree of cynicism about why this is public now, because, of course, we were discussing earlier in the programme that Trump is talking about new attacks, something happening against Iran. And so I wonder whether it is a rather convenient fashion to reveal that there was an IRGC-linked plot against Ivanka Trump now as some kind of backdrop to what's going to come in the coming hours or days against Iran.
Well, I mean, this guy was arrested in Turkey on May the 15th, which was what, last week? So a week ago. I don't know. I like my conspiracy theories, Benjamin, but I think that's a bit far-fetched. Charlie, is any weight to Benjamin's assessment there?
I'm not sure. We'll have to look at the timeline and come to those our own conclusions. But I think the word that you used was on the money. You know, it is chilling. And look, you don't need to be persuaded anymore as to know what the IRGC get up to, as to why they should be defeated, as to why Iran funding all the proxies that it does, whether it's the Hezbollahs, the Hamases, the Houthis, that want to destroy and target individuals, in this case, but Western civilization as a whole. You know, it talked about, look at that, you know, what you just said, you know, look at the picture of America and let it be destroyed. And, you know, send the message to Americans that your Secret Service, your defences, your intelligence systems won't be there for you. How sadistic and twisted is that? You know, this is the hallmark of terrorism, the terrorism that is alive and well, that wants to target America, that wants to target Ivanka, wants to target, you know, I mean, the president has been had attempted assassinations on his life by Americans, but, you know, you wouldn't put it past the terrorist regime in Iran and across the world that want to take out the president. But they want to attack us. This is the fight that we face in 2026 today, and it must be defeated.
Yeah, and this guy, al-Saadi, has links to London attacks. He was linked, according to the DOJ, to the stabbing of the 2 Jewish victims in London in April. So these people, again, I try not to debate people like Jonathan Liss, and Liss is a good example. You know, he's saying Iran don't want to be bombed. The Iranian people don't want to be bombed. The Islamist regime in Iran are running riot all across the West. And again, the DOJ have now claimed in their announcement today that this guy, trained by the IRGC, was behind the stabbing of the 2 Jews in London in April, Benjamin.
I mean, one of the hallmarks of the way that the IRGC and its agents behave in the West is actually that generally they don't go the full way. They don't try to actually assassinate somebody. But what they want to do is to create a culture of fear and a sense of danger in Iranian diaspora and Jewish people, certainly in London. So when I've reported on this before, you had a situation where there was a woman who'd been in an Iranian prison, a British Iranian woman. She was in prison with Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe. And when she got back to London, she started studying this at Oxford and speaking out against the Iranian regime. And then she would get phone calls from agents in London saying that they could see her on her way to her routine NHS hospital appointments, and they told that British woman that they were going to pose as a nurse in that hospital and they were going to inject her with a poison to kill her. Now, that happened on British soil to a British citizen, and they were clearly stalking her. That shows that Iran and its IRGC have agents all over the place. Now, that woman was given protection, but what did they want to do? They wanted to terrify her from speaking. I know another person who was vocal about against the regime with a large online following, and he was walking out of his front door one day when someone asked him for the time in Farsi and then tried to drag him into the back of a van in central London. He had to have round-the-clock security at his home after that point. Now, in both those cases, the people weren't arrested. There was no criminal case brought against those agents because we have been institutionally weak against an Iranian threat on our own soil. So when the question is about the war that we are to some degree involved in and that the US is obviously perpetrating, they have been fighting a war below the headlines on our soil for years, and it has been fear-mongering and targeting our own citizens in the US and the UK.
Yeah, well said. And all these useful idiots on the streets of London week in, week out with pictures of the Ayatollah and, you know, hands off Iran. Absolutely idiotic, inane people. They do not have the first clue of what they're protesting and talking about. And again, this is another reason. If you're just tuning in to GB News and The Late Show Live, the breaking news from the New York Post is that President Trump's daughter, Ivanka Trump, was targeted for assassination by an Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps trained terrorist. Recently captured Mohammed Bagher Saad Dawood al-Saadi reportedly made a pledge to kill Ivanka and even had a blueprint of her Florida home. He's an Iraqi national. He was allegedly targeting President Donald Trump's family in response to the killing of the IRGC chief Qasem Soleimani in a drone strike in Baghdad some years ago. Ivanka Trump is safe. No attack was ever carried out, but he was arrested for planning it. And this guy, al-Saadi, was behind a string of attacks and planned attacks. The firebombing of a bank in New York, the stabbing of 2 Jewish victims in London in April, and it goes on and on. gbnews.com/your say. Let's move on to one more story this evening. The Canadian province of Alberta is set to hold an independence referendum after separatists gathered more than 300,000, pretty meaty, signatures demanding a vote.
Alberta's future will be decided by Albertans, not the courts. Our government will therefore be appealing the decision to Alberta's Court of Appeal and, if necessary, the Supreme Court of Canada. But this process will take many months and possibly years before being addressed by those higher courts. But there is another way to hear from Albertans while we wait for our legal appeal to be heard. That is why I'm announcing today that I will be requesting our government add an additional question to the October 19th referendum vote announced previously. The additional question will be, should Alberta remain a province of Canada? Or should the government of Alberta commence the legal process required under the Canadian Constitution to hold a binding provincial referendum on whether or not Alberta should separate from Canada?
Supporters of this say federal Liberal policies and environmental restrictions are strangling Alberta's economy while the province bankrolls the rest of the country. And now some campaigners are openly floating the idea of the province becoming America's 51st state. Connor's here, Azim's here. Connor. Good idea, bad idea. Trump would love this.
I think Trump's licking his lips, probably, absolutely, thinking, you know what, follow through your independence, we'll cut a deal and you can become the 51st state, probably in all but name. I'll tell you who this also does cause a headache for that nobody actually realises is the King of England. Of course.
Yes.
The monarch, constitutional monarch of Canada. Alberta would then have to decide if it would want to be a republic, if it wanted to break away, or come under some other kind of rule. Maybe he is under Donald Trump, King Trump, the 51st state. But that's a headache actually coming down quickly down the path of the palace. Is probably doesn't realise it's coming.
Yeah, interesting. Azim?
Yeah, look, as somebody who's involved in the Scottish independence campaign, you know, for the Union, I'm very wholly against any sort of independence.
For the Union? You want to stay in the UK?
Stay in the UK.
Good lad.
I'm somebody that's completely against any sort of independence campaigns. The uncertainty it brings, the distraction, is basically drives away investment, and it just creates a very divided society that wasn't there before. And you can see that in Scotland. You have basically the nationalists and you have the non-nationalists are completely at loggerheads, unable to meet anywhere. And I think this referendum is unlikely to succeed, but you know, they have the Alberta 51 movement now, who wants to become the 51st state of the United States. You know, gives them access to the world's superpower and at the same time tariff-free access to the world's biggest market as well. But I think it's unlikely to succeed.
So logistically, how would it happen? It would go down to a vote, would it? An Alberta a referendum itself. But I mean, can the Canadian government just ignore it?
Yeah, all these referendum are advisory only, even the Scottish one that we had in Scotland. They're basically advisory. It's up to the government then to essentially implement it. So the government can ignore it, theoretically, but obviously it will then be a massive democratic deficit if it chooses to do so.
Well, I think I'd want independence from Canada with globalist-in-chief Mark Carney leading the charge.
Well, he's doing quite a good, I mean, I do hate to say it, but he's doing a very good job of positioning Canada actually on the global world stage in wake of kind of Trump's rewiring of trade. He's basically taken Canada and said, you know what, if you're going to close doors to the United States, come to us instead. And he's cutting trade deals and what he believes is going to be the new world order, which will be Canada and Europe coming together to strike one of the biggest kind of trade partnerships and be one of the big trade giants.
And China. He sat in China next to Xi and said, we are the new world order.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
extraordinary.
But the solution to all of these, you know, whether you're unhappy with Mark Carney or others, is essentially to fight for your country. Remove him if you're unhappy with him and try to rebuild and fight for your country. You know, seceding in this kind of manner, whatever province it may be, is essentially a one-way road to disaster, I believe.
Okay, very quickly, kind of relating to this, I quizzed Bev Turner yesterday in some filming about the initials of US states, i.e. New York is NY.
Right.
Azim, MO, what state?
MO, no idea.
Missouri.
Missouri.
Connor, MN.
Minneapolis.
Minnesota.
Yeah.
NV.
NV.
Nevada.
Nevada, yeah.
SC.
Sacramento.
No, that's a town, isn't it? California.
Oh dear.
There you go.
SC, South Carolina. Let's get the thoughts of Benjamin and Charlie Rowley. Charlie Rowley, Canada, Alberta, referendum on independence. Any chance of it happening? Did you back Brexit, by the way, Charlie, the referendum?
No, I voted Remain in the referendum over a decade ago, or coming up to a decade ago. But but this is why I feel so strongly about the way in which we've been treated now, and which is why we had a deal back then. David Cameron, the Prime Minister, was trying to get a better deal from the EU. It didn't work. That's why the country ultimately voted to leave. I wanted to stay because I thought, well, the Tories had just won a general election, and I didn't want to see any unnecessary economic shockwaves. That didn't happen, luckily. But with the idea that we'd go back in now on worse terms, being dictated to, having to pay more money, and the way in which our partners, our so-called friends, who I do want to be friends with, but they've treated us appallingly, there's no way I'd want to join that club tomorrow if that were ever to come to pass.
I don't think they're our friends. What kind of friend sends hordes of illegal migrants across the channel when you give them nearly £1 billion over 8 years?
Well, that's just the French.
Well, look, I worked on the Remain campaign. Stanley Johnson, father of Boris and me...
Did you?
Stanley Johnson and me ran Environmentalists for Europe. Which is a rather strange claim. Stanley Johnson was utterly unpredictable.
Is that on your CV, is it?
No, not anymore. But on the Canada point...
Environmentalists for Europe.
Yeah, Stanley Johnson, Polly Billington, who's now a Labour MP, and me, the three of us ran the campaign, clearly not very well. But what I would say on the Alberta thing is that these separatist movements are doomed to fail from the start, because most countries have some kind of part of their country that has an independence movement. So whether it's Scotland, Catalonia, Quebec, Alberta, Western Sahara in Morocco. And so you get all these movements, and there are so many countries in the world that have their own. And so if a part of a country were to create itself, everybody would be against it. So Scotland would not be allowed to join the EU because Spain would block it, because then it would give credence to Catalonia, and you'd get that kind of thing with Alberta doing this if it went independent. So, the reality is, the realpolitik is that if it were to go independent, it would be pretty stuffed.
OK, very last word, and it's a quick question. You need to be very brief. What are you doing tomorrow, Benjamin?
I am just back from Somalia, so tomorrow I'm going to sleep after this long day. Yes, I was in Somalia and Somaliland.
Charlie?
Not very much, but I'm going to save myself for Sunday, where either West Ham or Spurs could be relegated.
Hopefully Spurs. Connor, what are you doing tomorrow?
Hopefully watching Spurs get relegated.
Yay!
Got a lot of family functions with graduations and stuff.
Graduations, good stuff. Well, guys, thank you for your company tonight. It's been great. Really enjoyed some of the discussions and the debates. Charlie, Benjamin, Azim, Connor, and indeed the biggest thank you to viewers and listeners. I'll be back, of course, with you on your screens tomorrow from midnight UK time. Whatever you do tomorrow or today, Saturday, enjoy yourself. And I'll see you tomorrow evening. Good night, sweet dreams. Mwah. Goodbye.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi there, welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. 30 Celsius today, and believe it or not, today is the coolest day of the bank holiday weekend. Some patchy cloud first thing, but increasingly sunny and increasingly hot. Perhaps the odd shower during the next few hours across East Anglia in the southeast as this area of cloud moves out of the way. And then still some showers tickling parts of the northwest of Scotland through the day, generally light and fleeting. Cloudier for Northern Ireland, Scotland and Northern England. Temperatures not particularly exceptional here, high teens, low 20s. but come further south. And those temperatures are rocketing. We're looking at widely low to mid-20s and high 20s, up to 30 Celsius towards East Anglia and the southeast. High UV. Make sure you are bearing that in mind if you're spending time outdoors. But for Scotland, the cloud cover fairly continuous into the afternoon, breaking up a little by evening, showers tending to fade. And for many parts of the UK, yeah, it's cooler and cloudier in the north, but it's a fine start to the long weekend for the vast majority. Settled with high pressure in charge, and despite some high-level cloud across central parts of the UK, plenty of bright skies to end the afternoon and go into the evening. Clear spells then continue overnight. We will see a weak weather front bring some showery rain once again into the northwest of Scotland and thicker cloud overnight for Northern Ireland as well as Scotland. Highly variable temperatures overnight, some cool spots where we've got shelter from the breeze, but yeah, in some places, like London for example, temperatures staying up at 18 or 19 Celsius. So head start on Sunday as far as the temperatures are concerned, and widespread sunny skies, certainly a sunnier morning compared with this morning. England and Wales, southern Scotland, blue skies, and temperatures really rising quickly. We're looking at high 20s widely, up to 32 Celsius in the south, always cloudier and cooler the north of Scotland.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me. Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that, because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
Allow.
Stop.
You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you. Bulletins on GB News,
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country. There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor. Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The GB News audience is different, it's unique, because they see through the nonsense.
We want to debate with each other, we want to listen
and maybe learn.
We have a chat. That's what we do. We try and have a chat.
They'll watch my programme while they're eating their tea. They'll watch breakfast while they're busy getting their kids ready for school.
We want to hear what matters to you, what is news for you.
And what's brought you out here today?
What are the biggest issues affecting this particular area? The audience are the best thing about GB News. They're friends, they're family. They're people who need to have their voices heard.
They're passionate about the channel, they're passionate about what they believe in.
The one thing about GB News is you get a chance to speak.
Talk to me about why so many people have gathered here today.
Do you want to say something back in return? The GB News audience is what makes GB News special.
It's incredible to see.
They shape our programmes, they shape our output, and they shape our channel.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
Indeed, 9 o'clock. I'm Alex Armstrong, standing in for the brilliant Patrick Christie. He's having a well-earned day off. Very clever to have a day off like today, isn't it, Patrick? Anyway, coming up on the show.
I love our country, and one of the things about our country is good manners. Not very British, right?
Well, she's had a right mare there, hasn't she, the Chancellor? Is heckling really un-British, or can the left just not handle the reality?